Well, it's the start of the program, and for some reason, Republic Broadcasting has not yet connected with me. So I don't know what's going on. I haven't heard anything from them, but we're just going to get into it, I guess, and try and have a program here today anyway, because right now the theme music should be playing, and there doesn't seem to be anybody in the control room. So, welcome to our show in the wonderful world of live radio, where anything can go wrong here. All right, so it's Thursday, July 26, 2018, and we're getting down here to the end of the week. Tomorrow night, of course, is the big blood moon lunar eclipse. And oh, here we go. I think. All right, here we are. Okay, I'm not hearing any sound from RBN. Okay, there we go. All right, there's our music. We're launching a little bit late here.
What really happened with your host, Rivero?
The volume is really way too low. Okay, aloha. Welcome to our show here today, and it is Thursday, July 26, 2018. And sure happy it's Thursday, sure happy it's Thursday, sure happy it's Thursday. We've got a lot of stuff to talk about today. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443, 800-313-9443. Mike is in our control room, and let's just get into the news here. Over in Syria, the Syrian army has repelled a large-scale ISIS attack. ISIS attempted to retake a bunch of cities, Shpika, Shorihi, Rami, and Duma. And after a few hours of fighting, the Syrian Arab army took it on back. And 15 ISIS members were killed, but up to 150 civilians were killed, and an unknown number were injured. So this thing is still going on, and it's frustrating. You know, this thing is just about over. You know that a lot of these ISIS and Al-Qaeda have already accepted deals to just get out of Syria. But you've still got these groups out there who somehow think they're going to be able to keep this thing going. Alrighty, now, a lot of people are still talking about the evacuation of the white helmets, which may have also been a cover for extracting intelligence assets and ISIS Al-Qaeda commanders who would be able to testify to their links to the Western powers as well. But a lot of countries where these people are going to be taken, they're already mobilizing to say, no, NIMBY, not in my backyard. We don't want them here. And basically, over at Sputnik, Gian Michalison, a columnist of the Italian newspaper Il Giornale, basically said that any country accepting the white helmets in is basically spitting in the face of all the EU terror victims. And of course, it basically underscores the fact that ISIS and Al-Qaeda were in fact working as proxies for the Western powers, supported primarily by the United States. We documented that all the way back when Benghazi happened. And there were documents that came on out saying that the U.S. was smuggling Libyan weapons into Syria to give to ISIS and Al-Qaeda, using the consulate at Benghazi as the hub of the operation. And that got attacked and 4 people killed, and all the documentation conveniently was destroyed here. Now, over in Iran, the war of words is ramping up. Apparently, Iran's government has not responded very favorably with Trump saying he's ready to make a new deal, because they anticipate the new deal is going to be much more onerous than the one they already agreed to. Meaning that Trump wants to go after the long-range missiles because that's what Israel wants as well. Now, of course, the rhetoric is surrounding whether or not Iran could interfere with oil exports from the region going to other countries, which will no longer be buying from Iran due to the threat of more U.S. sanctions. So Iran's army chief is out there saying that the oil threat can be easily answered. Nobody is talking specifics. Obviously, in a force-on-force naval battle between the Iranian Navy and the U.S. Navy is going to win despite all the known problems with their ships. So Iran may be thinking about something else to basically close the Straits of Hormuz. But the rhetoric is just ramping day by day here. Turkey is saying to the United States, we will not obey. They're going to go on buying Iranian oil. And they're basically saying, we buy oil from Iran, we purchase it in the proper conditions, and the U.S. doesn't get to tell us who we will and will not do business with. And of course, it's the U.S. position that they can go all around the world saying what countries can do business with what countries. And already tensions with Turkey are high because Turkey has abandoned buying the U.S. air defense system and is now looking at the Russian S-400. So I imagine we're now going to be told that we have to go on in and invade Turkey because Erdogan is gassing his own people, or he's a terrible dictator, or he passes gas in elevators, or he's a really terrible dancer, or whatever excuse they're going to come up with on that one. We're going to do a shout out now to our on-air affiliates who are just now rejoining our network. Now, on Tuesday, Fox News host Tucker Carlson interviewed Colonel Douglas Macgregor about what's going on in Iran. And Macgregor basically came on out with a warning saying that the United States could easily repeat the Gulf of Tonkin incident false flag to get the U.S. into war with Iran. Now, for those of you who are not old enough to remember that, this happened all the way back in 1964. And there was an incident where supposedly the USS Maddox was fired on in the Gulf of Tonkin using torpedoes by North Vietnam. Now, in 2010, more than 1,100 transcripts from the Vietnam era were released, proving Congress and officials raised serious doubts about this information fed to them by the Pentagon and the White House. But while there was internal doubt within the government itself, the corporate media dutifully reported the official statements as if the veracity of the information couldn't be disputed. Oh, yes, we were being attacked, we were being attacked. And it didn't happen. It didn't happen. It was just another one of the many, too many to count, lies told to you by the government and the corporate media to get you to go along with wars of aggression. Now, over in Saudi Arabia, the Yemeni rebels have launched an attack on 2 oil tankers passing through the strategically important Red Sea shipping lane of Bab al-Mandeb. And Saudi Arabia has announced it will halt sending all oil shipments along that route, which means they'll have to turn north and take their tankers out through the Suez Canal. And that will mean for longer trips to some of their customers and clients. Now, over on the western border of Russia, Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu is saying that in the Western Military District since 2016, there have been more than 70 new formations and military units formed in direct response to what they describe as obvious NATO aggression, bringing more nations into NATO, moving closer to the Russian border, which breaks a promise that was made to Gorbachev, that NATO would confine itself to its current borders, at least as far as Russia was concerned, which at that point was the border of Germany. And of course, you've seen over the last 2 years how NATO is just throwing more and more arms and weapons into that region. And Russia is having to respond, and that's exactly what's happening now. Of course, you can count on the corporate media to reverse this and say, oh, it's Russian aggression. They're getting ready to aggress. They're putting in more weapons, and obviously they're up to no good here. Interestingly enough, and it shows how complicated and confusing geopolitics can be, Israel is deepening trade ties with China at a time when Israel's supposed best friend, the United States, is engaging in a tariff war. And the Pentagon is very worried because, based on past history, Israel could become a backdoor through which China could acquire capabilities that it could not get in the They're concerned about Israeli-Chinese deals could cause artificial intelligence capabilities to find their way into a new generation of Chinese weapons that could threaten American troops. And if an American pilot were ever shot down by a Chinese missile powered by Israeli technology, it would be a real problem for the Israeli government. No, it wouldn't. Nothing bad ever happens to the Israeli government no matter what they do. That's just a reality. And Israel has previously betrayed the United States by taking the weapon systems produced in the United States, reverse engineering them, and then selling that technology to countries who don't really like us. Now, Israel is still out there justifying everything that it is doing in Gaza and the West Bank as their right to defend themselves. But there was an interesting little article that came out of Electronic Intifada saying that this is really ridiculous, because if you look at the history of Israel, Israel is clearly the aggressor. They're not defending themselves. They're constantly grabbing more and more of Palestine. They tried to grab more of Egypt. They're trying to grab, well, they just grabbed part of Syria. Israel's the aggressor. They're not defending themselves at all. But it's very, very common for nations engaged in wars of aggressions to claim that they're having to defend themselves. Hitler did it at the Gleiwitz affair, and of course we invaded Iraq because we had a right to defend ourselves against Saddam's nuclear weapons of mass destruction. Harumph, harumph, harumph. Senator Hiram Johnson once said, "Truth is the first casualty of war," and he was absolutely right. Now, as you know, China has been building a global shipping empire. They're now basically in control of the Panama Canal. They are now in control of major shipping ports right here in the United States of America, and they're building one up in El Salvador. But the U.S. is now accusing China of actually building a military base, that it's only partly a commercial port, and that it will be used to base China ships with which to threaten the region. Well, it's not uncommon for commercial ports to also have facilities for military ships. But again, it's just more of this war of words. Now, earlier today, there was an explosion at the U.S. Embassy in China. They've arrested the person who did it. The only person who did it was the bomber. Apparently, it wasn't all that powerful a bomb. There was some broken glass, and there was some blood from the bomber himself. 26-year-old man identified by his surname Jiang from Inner Mongolia. And the Beijing police said the explosion was a result of fireworks. Now, in Mandarin, fireworks is a very broad term that can refer to anything from sparklers to full-on high-powered explosives. And apparently, after that happened, police also found a woman who was trying to douse herself with an accelerant for an act of self-immolation, and they got to her and prevented that from happening. But Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesman Geng Shuang said the explosion is an isolated incident and police are handling it. Now, North Korea reportedly plans to transfer remains of U.S. soldiers from the start of the Korean War tomorrow. In fact, it's actually, given the international dateline, it's going to be just hours from now. And it's the number of soldiers has not been specified, but they're starting the process, and the transfer is coinciding with the 65th anniversary of the 1953 Armistice Agreement that ended fighting. So, very symbolic moment there here. The U.S., despite all of the problems with their weapons and all of the economic hardships, is still trying to act like the world policeman. The U.S. is expanding overseas military presence with an additional 300,000 troops in 177 nations. That's a lot of people. It's like the Roman Empire with their garrisons and the legions to keep control over the empire, which ultimately didn't work on out. A lot of these nations, the ordinary people there, do not like having the Americans present. Okinawa is a good example. There have been a lot of incidents of the U.S. troops abusing women sexually, and the Okinawans would like the Americans to go. But the U.S. government and the Okinawan government have reached a deal, which probably involves a certain amount of monetary transfer, to keep these bases there. But we're stretched all over the world at incredible amounts of money here. Meanwhile, the U.S. has announced they're going to bolster their marine presence in Australia to tackle the threat from China. Ooh, China's the new threat. We've got to make stink face at China here. They are playing literally with fire. And of course, all of these people who are pushing their wars, they're just thinking about profits to defense contractors with whom they are invested. That's what it's all about. Members of Congress, members of the government, they have stock portfolios filled with stock from General Dynamics and Lockheed Martin and Boeing and all these other companies. And the more they can stir up trouble, the more money they're making. And the fact that some of your kids may be killed and crippled in the process, well, that's just the cost of doing business, you know, as long as we all get richer. So let's turn to the domestic politics. As you know, the House of Representatives is drawing up a document, has drawn up a document for the impeachment of Assistant Attorney General Rod Rosenstein. And it's rather interesting to see who's coming to Rosenstein's defense. And interestingly enough, on Fox News, I saw Alan Dershowitz earlier saying that it's silly to impeach Rod Rosenstein because you can't impeach somebody just because you don't like them. There has to be an actual crime that has been committed. But if you read the actual impeachment articles, they've made a very clear case for obstruction of justice. With all the stonewalling, the defiance of subpoenas, the refusal to follow court orders to release documents. But interestingly enough, Speaker of the House Paul Ryan is out there rejecting these efforts to impeach Rod Rosenstein. And you have to wonder, why is Ryan protecting Rosenstein? Now remember, Rosenstein and that whole group of people are, shall we say, the first layer of the onion leading down to this incredible core of rotted corruption surrounding the Clinton Charitable Foundation, espionage in the Capitol building, all kinds of other things. And so Ryan is apparently trying to prevent any more progress. They're subverting the course of justice here. First of all, by the Department of Justice refusing to turn over documents, which they're not allowed to do. Congress has oversight responsibility and rights to see those documents. If you think about it, our federal system of government is breaking down right now over this infighting. It's not functioning as it should. Now, the White House has announced, actually, White House Deputy Press Secretary Hogan Gidley told reporters on Air Force One that Trump has started the mechanism for pulling the security clearances from certain individuals and saying that the president finds it inappropriate for somebody to go on television under the perception of legitimacy, integrity, and level false and baseless claims against another person without any evidence whatsoever. And there's also the issue about the continuing leaks and whether some of these people with these security clearances who are no longer working for the government are monetizing those security clearances by accessing classified information and then leaking it to the media. That is a very real concern. My concern is that so far Hillary Clinton is not on that list of people whose security clearances are going to be revoked, and she should be there. She should absolutely be there. She is not in government service any longer. She should not have access to classified information, especially with the history of how she handled classified information while Secretary of State. James Comey said it was carelessness. I think it was intentional. But regardless of which one it was, looking at that experience about how Hillary Clinton handled classified information, even if it was just carelessness, is why her access to classified information should be cut off right now. Okay, we're going to take a break for commercials. We'll be right back after these few words.
Corporate media dominates the American opinion. Finding independent voices that counter this avalanche is becoming increasingly difficult. With the endless corruption running rampant throughout our government, independent voices are needed more than ever to battle the offensive against our freedoms and liberties. As a listener of RBN, no one understands this concept better than you. Now it's up to you to do your part. The time has come for you to take action and begin broadcasting the truth to hundreds or thousands of people every month. Sound impossible? Quite the contrary. With pointed slogans from LibertyStickers.com, you can reach countless sleeping Americans unaware that they live in a real-life wonderland. LibertyStickers.com has a huge inventory of political bumper stickers and messages that reflect the truth about our government, our politicians, and the future of America. With so many in stock, there's one perfect for you. Visit us today at LibertyStickers.com. Again, that's LibertyStickers.com. Do your part. Your voice is important. Let it be heard.
Folks, we're living in a world the likes of which we've never perceived any clearer than we do now. The plan for global governance has been in the works for generations and would have likely been achieved by now, but for the fact that the globalists left open their Achilles heel. With all their tools, Federal Reserve System, fiat currency, no child left behind, and then Common Core education introduced to our schools to dumb us down, vaccines, pharmaceuticals to lobotomize us, GMO foods, insertion of compromised or bought and paid for politicians, judges, mainstream media propaganda, all pieced together like a puzzle designed to ultimately bring the world under submission. But with all their strategy, they forgot one thing: knowledge. And knowledge is power. With knowledge, their bombardment is nullified. Folks, with that, as brilliant and knowledgeable as you've become, among the wisest audience of any radio audience in the world, and you are, I want you to take a moment to reflect and ask yourself, how much of that knowledge did I obtain from Republic Broadcasting Network? How high has my consciousness been raised since I've been a listener? How fast am I now able to discriminate truth from fake news by being a Republic Broadcasting listener? How clear am I now able to see the world since I've been listening to RBN? Ask yourselves those questions, folks. Then ask yourself, what is that knowledge worth to me? Like my morning coffee, how would I survive without it? A voice of truth in a sea of lies. Do we not all need to make sure it survives? Like public broadcasting, we are now finding we can only survive with listener support. Censorship, advertisers being attacked, truth itself being attacked. It's the only way through this. We at Republic Broadcasting humbly ask you to become a supporter. Look at your budget and make a determination of what Republic Broadcasting is worth to you and what you can afford on a monthly basis. Go to republicbroadcasting.org and pledge 20, 30, 40, 50, if possible, 100 a month or more if it's affordable. Click the donate button and become a regular monthly donor. Assure both us and yourself that Republic Broadcasting truth will continue to flow like that morning coffee. The network thanks you.
Welcome to What Really Happened Radio. Visit us online at whatreallyhappened.com. And now, set your eyes on the future and let's consider what really happened.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show. We got some callers waiting on the line, and let's start with Peter in Los Angeles. Aloha, Peter. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Mike, it was just too juicy a topic for me not to call in about Israeli arm transfers.
Yes.
And if I can give a brief history, let's start out with the big one. Let's start out with it's not necessarily Israeli, but the Rosenbergs selling all that stuff, and Klaus Fuchs and all that, and David Greenglass, part of the people that sold and gave our nuclear secrets to the Russia in the 1949 and 50. But beyond that, then of course we have the Israelis stealing U.S. nuclear material to make a bomb, then taking that material and giving it to South Africa, offering to sell it. Then we have the back in 1982 when they invaded Lebanon against Reagan's wishes. Reagan held out and froze the delivery of 75 F-16, if you remember.
I remember.
And of course, it was only because the Israeli lobby just got on them. And so they reversed it later on. They got all their free F-16s. But at least for a second, the Israeli lobby was really concerned that they could be separated from their source of high-tech material. So they went and they got the U.S. to help, not help, we funded something called the Lavi fighter. Lavi,
yes.
Hebrew for lion. The Lavi was we funded the whole thing. I think it came to something around the other $500 million or $1 billion that we gave to them. And it just so they could produce their own fighters, so that they wouldn't be subject to us, taking away their access to like the F-16s. However, it turned out that they just didn't have the domestic capacity they just didn't have the domestic capacity to make the software that guides the whole thing.
Yes.
So that collapsed, and all the investment that we put into this lobby, which was nothing really but a super F-16, was then sold to the Chinese. That became
Yes.
the basis for the F-10 and the F-12 fighter plane.
Yes.
Then you harken back a couple of years ago. Remember when that U.S. Anti-submarine warfare plane was shot down over Hainan by Chinese fighters using an air-to-air missile that was a ripoff of the latest Sidewinder missile. And that, it turned out, when they did the analysis on that, that was just a re-engineering of our Sidewinder missile that was sold to them by Israel.
Yes.
So it goes on and on and on. If they've got a promising company in the United States, since there's no restrictions at all on what they can do and no accountability for what they can do, they just buy the company. They'll buy the entire company, ship it over to Israel, put a Star of David on it, and declare that technology their own. And there's no restriction on it whatsoever. They do this time and time again.
Yeah,
So
they have,
that's
and you're
just a
absolutely right. I mean,
easy.
they've bought themselves the lead in quite a few technologies. Companies like Intel, their R&D centers are now in Israel, and Israel stands up and says, we're the world leader in R&D. No, not really. They just bought it and imported it and brought it on in. They didn't build it themselves.
Yeah, and think about the untold billions, that the Chinese would have spent on actually producing that J-12 series. It advanced them a whole generation in their fighter technology. They got it free from the Israelis, and we paid the Israelis to do it. Think about the Sidewinder missile thing. There's that same thing. All the billions that would have been spent on that. Then think about the nuclear technology that they stole from us, and of course now threaten the world with, including us.
Yes.
And their spy rings. Of course, it was in Israel, but let's face it, all the nuclear stuff, Fuchs and Green Glass and Rosenberg, they were all Jewish. And had Israel been able to make use of it, they would have given it to them for free as well. But at any rate, it just goes on and on.
It's even worse than that. It's even worse than that. The U.S. government will contract for more weapons than the Pentagon is actually asking for. Then the production overrun will be declared surplus, and that'll be sold to Israel for pennies on the dollar, even though it's brand new and we, the American people, paid the full price for it. It really is an absolute scam here. Our country is totally under foreign puppet rule. And that's why our government in Washington, D.C. does not care about quality of life in this nation or the American people or our infrastructure. They're in power there to basically strip mine this country for the benefit of a foreign power.
Well, I hope that the people who I've been paying attention, as I know you have, but to this for years. I'm your age, and this has been going on my entire life, and it's frankly it's pissed me off my entire life.
Yep.
And I'm glad that you're there somewhere now to state it, that this has been happening, because nobody covers it, nobody talks about it, but it's the elephant in the room for technology. They'll take and sell anything to anybody. Oh, here's one more. Remember your thing with the Jackson Amendment, where they took our plans and sold it for
Yes.
immigration to Israel. So I know I got to roll here, Mike, but thanks for letting me talk.
All right. Thanks a lot for the phone call. We got to take another break for commercials, and we will be right back.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
Homeowners, if your lender has gone out of business or sold your transaction to another lender or servicer, you may be the victim of a wrongful foreclosure, resulting in the loss of your home. If you've already lost your home, are in foreclosure, or even in good standing, you can challenge the mortgage transaction's illegal issue, and your property can be restored to you, and your foreclosure can be stopped or reversed, and the mortgage transaction declared unenforceable. State laws, U.S. title codes, the Uniform Commercial Codes, and U.S. Supreme Court rulings have upheld that defective mortgage documentations can reverse or stop foreclosures and enforce property title claims in favor of the homeowner. We are having successes in stopping the process of foreclosure, the enforcement of the foreclosure judgments, the sale of property, and evictions after the sale. We are not attorneys, and we don't give legal advice. We are a professional team of legal researchers, providing forensic mortgage audits and expert witnesses. We have the knowledge to produce the evidence and enforce laws regarding your legal issues. We've been in business for 12 years without a complaint. Consultations are free, and we provide a free title search to confirm if your mortgage has legal defects. Please call 855-253-3748. 855, the number 2, keep it today.
Tired of being lied to by mass media? It's growing more and more apparent today that news is received less and less through standard media outlets. Even with a growing audience every day, RBN is beginning to direct more efforts into social media. Social media and the use of the internet is fast becoming the primary source of people for news, regardless of demographic. RBN has set out to provide some of the best news on the internet through republicbroadcasting.org, and also has begun to use the tools to our advantage by way of social media. Republic Broadcasting is now operating a Facebook page to function as yet another avenue to have our collective voice reach new audiences across not only America, but across the globe as well. The Facebook page features not only news, but also an RBN player to listen to our broadcasts. Get involved by visiting facebook.com/Republic Broadcasting and liking our page and share it with your friends and family, because you can handle the truth.
Without the right accessories, any guy can be off the mark. Whether you've invested thousands in your arsenal or you own a single trusted firearm, a visit to AROutfitting.com is in order. It's one of the finest online selections of tactical optics and AR parts and add-ons, like EOTech, quick target acquisition with no peripheral loss. Browse the full range of Nikon scopes and binoculars. AROutfitting.com can illuminate your world with Streamlight gun-mounted lights from keychain to large handhelds up to 1,100 lumens. Find some stability with Battenfield tactical bipods. AirOutfitting.com has CMMG gun parts, barrels, assemblies, handguards, part kits, and more. Plus mag-full clips and magazines. I know I've got you excited, so take a breath. Head to AirOutfitting.com. The site's super easy to navigate and features a ton of technical info, including links to manuals. We also welcome vendor and manufacturer inquiries. Remember, if you don't see it, we can get it at AROutfitting.com.
Some are maxed out all their credit cards. Some are working 2 jobs and living in cars. Minimum wage won't pay for a roof, won't pay for a drink. If you gotta have proof, just try it yourself, Mr. CEO. See how far $5.15 an hour will go. Take a part-time job at one of your stores. I bet you can't make it here anymore.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show. And we're talking about the articles of impeachment against Rod Rosenstein and how a lot of people are leaping to his defense. And you have to ask why. And my theory, of course, is that there is still this rotted core of corruption inside the federal government that ties up with the Clinton Foundation, with CIA drug running, with all kinds of stuff, and everybody's out there trying to protect it. And defending Rod Rosenstein is almost like a litmus test for who is and is not part of that dirty little cabal. And we were talking about how House Speaker Paul Ryan is out there saying he's absolutely opposed to this impeachment moving forward. And now we have Attorney General Jeff Sessions, who's out there saying, no, we shouldn't be doing this. And, Congress ought to be focusing on things like illegal immigration and stop messing about with the Department of Justice. Well, I'm sorry, Mr. Sessions, Congress does have oversight responsibility for the executive branch, including the Department of Justice. And Rod Rosenstein is looking at those impeachment articles because he defied subpoenas, he refused to turn over documents, and he abused the Foreign Intelligence Service Act. And these are all impeachable offenses. But it is going to be interesting. We need to start keeping a list. Who is defending Rod Rosenstein? They are part of that corrupt cabal that lies at the heart of what's gone wrong with our government. Now, Robert Mueller, still not ready to give on up on finding something to get Donald Trump with, is apparently, according to the New York Times, starting to dig through all of Donald Trump's tweets, trying to build an obstruction case out of his tweets regarding the Russia investigation. That's how desperate Mueller is right now. He's going to go on out and he's going to find Trump's tweets where Trump is saying this is a witch hunt, and Mueller's going to say, see, he's trying to obstruct justice. He's trying to obstruct justice. So, now, District Judge Peter Mesite of Maryland is allowing the emoluments lawsuit against Trump to proceed. And this was a lawsuit filed against Donald Trump a while ago regarding the fact that when foreign entities come to visit Washington, D.C., very often they will stay at the Trump Hotel, which apparently is one of the nicer ones in town, and therefore President Trump is profiting from his being in office. That's what the emoluments clause is all about. He's not supposed to be getting any kind of gifts or profits from doing his job. And they're moving forward with the lawsuit, but my recollection is that Trump had already defused this by basically saying that anytime any foreign diplomats or any officials who were visiting the White House stayed at the Trump Hotel, the proceeds from those visits would go to charity. But the anti-Trumpers are still out there just trying to do, they won't let go. They will not let go. And I think it's because that if Trump himself comes to understand what's going on inside the deep state the way that you and I do, he might be willing to do something about it. And I think that's the reason they've been so terrified of him ever since he came on in, because he's giving the deep state almost everything they want. He's keeping the war agenda going. He is trying to shut the border down, but so far that hasn't worked on out. The vaccine safety panel has pretty much gone away. We hear occasionally from Robert F. Kennedy Jr. On that, but it's usually buried down on page 34 underneath the astrology report. So why are they still after him? Because they can't count on him to protect the cover-up if he should somehow find out what's going on. I think it's one of the reasons why the White House staff are keeping Trump out of the White House. Have you noticed how much traveling he's doing and doing speeches? He's out there right now doing a speech at U.S. Steel. I think they're basically trying to keep him on the road, not give him the time to sit down and think things through. Now, as you know, this Maria Butina, she is an alleged Russian spy who was getting in close with various conservatives and the NRA. The FBI knew about it, did not warn them, and now she is being put on trial for operating as an agent of the Russian government without registering as such. And the U.S. government lawyers want a gag on the entire trial. And they're using as an excuse the fact that Maria's lawyer has made some statements to the press. And so Assistant U.S. Attorney Thomas Saunders is saying they will not issue discovery to defense attorney Robert Driscoll until there is a protective order secured on it, so that he can't talk about what he finds in there. Translation, there's something in the discovery that undermines the official story. First and foremost, the fact that the FBI knew of this lady's actions and didn't warn anybody. Were they using her? Is she a double? Was she part of the attempt to set up and compromise? So, now the poll numbers are not looking good for the Democrats in the midterm elections, which is why they're trying to flood in so many illegal immigrants and get them registered to votes. And it was only a few months ago, Democrats were talking about the blue wave of gaining 50 seats in the House of Representatives. And it's not looking like that. And the analysis is showing right now they're going to come up one seat short. So if at first you don't succeed, cheat. Apparently, that's what we know the Democrats do. They did it in 2016. They cheated Bernie Sanders out of the nomination. They tried to cheat Trump out of the presidency. Now, the White House has barred reporter Caitlin Collins from the Trump Rose Garden event that's coming up. And the reason for that, or actually, I think it happened yesterday. The reason for that is that she has a habit of just shouting questions at President Trump at what would be considered inappropriate moments. And some of the other reporters do that as well. They'll just shout things at Donald Trump when he's trying to talk with foreign heads of state, or he's trying to give a speech, and they interrupt him. It's very rude. And so Caitlin Collins has been banned, and the corporate media is rallying around her. They're turning into the new martyr. And even Fox News President Jay Wallace put out a statement saying, we have strong support for CNN. It's another reminder that Fox News, which used to at least have some kind of impartiality, has now been brought into the fold of corporate media propagandists. Over at The View, and no, I didn't watch this myself because it's a ridiculous show as far as I'm concerned. They've had Cynthia Nixon and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez on the show in the past few weeks for these very softball interviews, basically giving them airtime, giving them FaceTime. And Obama advisor Valerie Jarrett appeared on yesterday's show for another conversation where host Joy Behar basically said that Jarrett has to get Obama to go on the offensive against Donald Trump, saying that this is an emergency. Obama's got to condemn him publicly. You can almost smell the panic here. Now, down in Guantanamo, as you know, they're coming up finally on the court trial of Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, who is accused of being the mastermind behind 9/11. Now, the defense lawyers are saying that because the CIA director Haspel has been making all of these inflammatory statements in the media and at her Senate confirmation hearings, that the trial is tainted. And they are basically asking the trial judge to either dismiss the charges or at least remove the possibility of a death penalty because of what they see as unlawful influence. Now, the only actual case they have against Khalid Sheikh Mohammed is a confession extracted under torture. They waterboarded this guy something like 180 times. They took his kids and locked them in these darkened metal boxes with biting insects, and made him listen to the kids scream. And only then did he say, yes, yes, I did it. That's their entire case. They don't have anything else at all. This is the worst railroading since the Tsarnaev brothers. All right, so let's talk about the economic news here. Tech stocks had a kind of a bad day today. Facebook kind of led the way after showing disappointing quarterly results. And it basically nearly hit its biggest share price decline ever. And Zuckerberg himself personally lost $14 billion out of this. Don't worry, he's got plenty more. He's got lots more, but he did lose $14 billion. And they're trying to say that it's these new European privacy guards that are all to blame. I don't think so. I think people just aren't using Facebook anymore. I certainly am not. Not with all the censorship going on, not with all the spying going on. Facebook has lost $132 billion in value. It's down over 20% from its closing highs because it's not nice to violate the First Amendment and to spy on people, thereby violating the Fourth Amendment. People are going to competing platforms. Now, here's where it gets interesting. If we could actually get the Securities and Exchange Commission to actually do their job, which if you remember, they failed miserably during Bernie Madoff. But apparently Facebook insiders dumped $4.1 billion of their own stock ahead of this crash. Somebody inside Facebook said, we're going to be in trouble. Probably they were looking at the declining user base. And that looks like insider trading here. Now, as the U.S.-China trade war heats up, in the area of soybeans, Brazil is coming out the winner. They are selling soybeans like crazy to China. China had been the biggest buyer of U.S. soybeans in recent years. But now you have the tariffs plus China's rejection of GMO, and they're going down to Brazil. U.S. soybean prices have fallen by 20%. To their lowest price in nearly a decade. And other countries are now buying U.S. soybeans at below market prices, which means the soybean farmers are not doing very well. They're being harmed by all this nonsense. I really am glad that Trump and the EU worked out a zero tariff plan. Now, it's not without its complications. The whole point of the tariffs was to try and balance trade between the two countries, and this framework to get rid of the tariffs also includes obligations that Europe will in fact buy a lot more American products, mainly agricultural. So it's accomplishing the same task, but without the pain to the end consumer. And I think I agree with Trump on that one. I think I really do on this one. Okay, 114 out of the nation's 1,400 multi-employer pension plans covering 1.3 million workers are underfunded to the tune of $36.4 billion, and they are expected to start going insolvent in the next 5 years or so. There's a pension time bomb out there because the pensions fell victim to that 2008 mortgage-backed security fraud. When Wall Street was putting together those bundles of mortgages, subprime mortgages, and breaking the securitization chain, Wall Street's rating agencies all rated them AAA, which made it legal for pensions to invest in them. And then the whole thing fell apart, collapsed, and the pensions lost a lot of money. And you, the American taxpayer, were forced to pay to keep most of those Wall Street firms still running. And apparently some of the banks in Europe that got caught up in this nonsense were bailed out at U.S. taxpayer expense. The only one that was allowed to really collapse was Lehman Brothers. Tesla is looking worse and worse, and I'm really sorry to hear it because I like the concept of the car. But Elon Musk, he's spread too thin. He's doing too many things, and he needs to focus on what he's doing with the Tesla right now. And Tesla's debt is now considered so poor, it's costing about $2 million to insure $10 million of Tesla debt against default. That is a tremendous, tremendous cost. Normally, credit default swaps don't cost anywhere near that much money. The U.S. is now looking at a bill, the U.S. Congress rather is looking at a bill that will target OPEC, Russia, and other non-OPEC oil alliances by basically declaring them as monopolies, opening them up to antitrust lawsuits within the United States. I'm not sure how well that's going to work on out. Supposedly the legislation, which has been rejected by past U.S. presidents, may actually be signed into law by Donald Trump. Now what's going to happen are these other places, OPEC, Russia, other oil alliances, they're going to stop doing business with the U.S. because it's just becoming too much of a hassle to do. Now, the U.S. does have plenty of domestic oil production. Right now, they're trying to sell it. But we may find ourselves stuck behind, if you will, a petroleum wall. where nobody wants to sell us oil or buy oil from us, and we're powering our own internal industry with domestic energy, which is a good thing, I think. Makes us more self-sufficient, but of course it flies directly in the face of the plans of the globalists who want this nation over here providing all the oil, this nation over here providing all the electronics, and this nation over here providing all the automobiles, and this nation over here, in order to make us interdependent on each other. And that part of the globalist agenda is falling apart right now. We're going to take a break for commercials, and we'll be right back.
Do you worry a lot? If you're forgetful, nervous, moody, or overwhelmed, chances are you're not protecting yourself from the ravaging effects of stress and anxiety. No matter the cause, ongoing stress and elevated levels of the stress hormone cortisol can rob your memory, your health, your quality of life, and your future. Now you can combat the effects of stress and anxiety while improving your memory and recall at the same time with the dietary supplement Calm and Clever. Studies show that the ingredients in Calm and Clever reduce cortisol by as much as 30% in as little as 1 to 2 weeks and increase your ability to recall facts, names, and numbers in 4 to 12 weeks. Calm and Clever was created by scientist Kurt Hendricks, a principal investigator in 2 NIH-funded studies on Alzheimer's disease. Try Calm and Clever for 2 months. You'll feel the difference. Call 1-800-758-8746 or go to calmandclever.com.
Corporate media dominates the American opinion. Finding independent voices that counter this avalanche is becoming increasingly difficult. With the endless corruption running rampant throughout our government, independent voices are needed more than ever to battle the offensive against our freedoms and liberties. As a listener of RBN, no one understands this concept better than you. Now it's up to you to do your part. The time has come for you to take action and begin broadcasting the truth to hundreds or thousands of people every month. Sound impossible? Quite the contrary. With pointed slogans from LibertyStickers.com, you can reach countless sleeping Americans unaware that they live in a real-life wonderland. LibertyStickers.com has a huge inventory of political bumper stickers and messages that reflect the truth about our government, our politicians, and the future of America. With so many in stock, there's one perfect for you. Visit us today at LibertyStickers.com. Again, that's LibertyStickers.com. Do your part. Your voice is important. Let it be heard.
Many people write about their experience with Extendivite. Allow me to read you a few from Amazon.com. My wife and I both use Extendivite and are very pleased with the results. It has helped to stabilize our blood pressure and to make both of us feel healthier. Good product and good buy. So far, so good. I've been taking Extendivite 3 times a day, only a short while now, but already I've noticed the circulation in my hands and feet improving. They tingle. I like the idea of taking something herbal rather than pills. I take Extendivite 3 times a day, every day. I think this supplement has helped with my increased fitness regime and to lower my blood pressure. Tell us your story. Get Extendivite today. Call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendivite.
What this country is coming to, I sure would like to know. If they don't do something by and by, the rich will live and the poor will die. Doggone, I mean the panic is on. Can't get no way, can't draw no pay.
And aloha America, welcome back to our show here. Now, over at the Kaiser Report, Max Kaiser was looking at this claim by the IMF's former guy in Russia that there's never going to be a debt crisis with the country's current economic team in charge. and that basically the United States' goal to create economic chaos in Russia has failed. Now, the reason for that first one is that Putin's government took over direct control of Russia's central bank. It's still privately owned. He didn't confiscate it, but he took direct control of it in order to run Russia's public currency as a public utility and not as a privatized for-profit scam, as it is run here in the United States. And so they're going to make sure the debt never gets out of control. Whereas here in the United States, the Federal Reserve always wants the debt higher and more out of control. They make more money out of that. So it's just incredibly greedy. But we know about the failure to cause an economic crisis going all the way back to that ill-considered oil price war, which has really put a lot of countries, including Saudi Arabia, into a serious hurt, where the U.S. went on out and just crushed down oil prices, hoping that they would harm Russia, which does have a large oil industry. But Russia has other industries and other exports and a very resilient economy, especially compared to the United States, and they rode it on out. And meanwhile, Saudi Arabia got into economic trouble, had to issue government bonds for the first time in decades. It's one of the reasons Venezuela is in such serious straits right now. Oil companies in the U.S. and Canada all got hit. A lot of fracking companies were literally driven out of business because they were operating on such thin profit margins as it was. So now, there was an interesting story where there's this Haitian immigrant who shot a police officer in the head. The police officer was Adam Jobbers Miller, who was shot in the head by Haitian immigrant Wisner Desmarais on Saturday in Fort Myers, Florida. Now, the officer is in the hospital. He's in serious condition, but he is in the hospital. Now, the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency had filed a detainer on this Haitian individual. And apparently he's been involved in all kinds of illicit activities since getting into the United States. And this has not been covered by CNN, MSNBC, the New York Times, or the Washington Post. They're not running any stories that show that illegal immigrants or refugees in a negative light. They want you to love the New World Order. They want you to love globalism. By the way, over in Portland, remember that big Occupy ICE protest? They had this camp they had. Well, the protest has basically ended. The protesters left, and they left behind a huge, huge mess, including piles of human waste, which Portland is now going to have to clean up at taxpayer expense. Nice people, these open borders types. We'll be right back after station identification.
Corporate media dominates the American opinion. Finding independent voices that counter this avalanche is becoming increasingly difficult. With the endless corruption running rampant throughout our government, independent voices are needed more than ever to battle the offensive against our freedoms and liberties. As a listener of RBN, no one understands this concept better than you. Now it's up to you to do your part. The time has come for you to take action and begin broadcasting the truth to hundreds or thousands of people every month. Sound impossible? Quite the contrary. With pointed slogans from LibertyStickers.com, you can reach countless sleeping Americans unaware that they live in a real-life wonderland. LibertyStickers.com has a huge inventory of political bumper stickers and messages that reflect the truth about our government, our politicians, and the future of America. With so many in stock, there's one perfect for you. Visit us today at LibertyStickers.com. Again, that's LibertyStickers.com. Do your part. Your voice is important. Let it be heard.
This is RBN, the Republic Broadcasting Network.
What Really Happened with your host, Mike Rivero. The history the government hopes you never learn. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. Now, over in Europe, as you know, some of the member states of the European Union have really had it up to here with the refugees pouring on in and causing a lot of trouble. And recently, over in Italy, Matteo Salvini, who's the interior minister, has closed the country's borders and ports to both pro-migrant non-governmental organizations and other vessels bringing in individuals from the North African coast. So the European Union Commission has proposed paying member states cash incentives for countries which agree to set up reception centers for migrants picked up in the Mediterranean Sea. And the Commission is announcing plans to give member states the equivalent of $7,000 per migrant. And where does the EU Commission get that cash? Well, from taxing the member states, of course. So a little bit of a raw deal, because the taxes paid to the EU by the member states are supposed to be spent to make the EU better, to improve the infrastructure, to take care of the people of Europe. Now, over in Germany, the number of radical Islamic Salafists has topped 10,000 for the first time. This is a report by the Federal Office for the Protection of the Constitution, and it's basically up from 9,700 the year before, and more than doubling of the number from 5 years ago. The newspaper that reported this also claimed the number of radical Islamists coincides with an increase in the number of criminal cases in which a radical Islamic motive or background was suspected. Well, that is to be expected. And that's the important point here. When you allow just anyone into your country, you're going to get people that you really wish hadn't been there, hadn't been allowed in. Europe is dealing with a crime wave, a rape wave, introduction of illnesses that had previously been eradicated, same thing that we're dealing with here in the United States of America. Now, over on the border between Spain and Morocco, some 800 migrants tried to cross the border between Morocco and Spain, and 602 of them succeeded. And the migrants were using poo, feces. They were flinging their own poo at the Border Patrol fighters, and they had improvised flamethrowers with flammable chemicals in spray bottles with a little cloth in front. They used Molotov cocktails. 15 law enforcement officers were injured in the clashes and later taken to a hospital. So we're getting into an age of open violence between people who want to protect their borders in their country and the rest of the world, which has been convinced that they have an automatic right to go anywhere in the world they want to and behave any way they wish to once they get there. Over in Great Britain, as you know, there's been talk of a delay in the drop-dead date for the Brexit. And the EU is saying they'll extend the deadline if there's going to be another referendum or a general election. Ireland has just thrown a monkey wrench into the situation, saying that they're still not happy with their situation because they want to remain part of the EU. And so far, they don't have a way how this is going to work. Are they going to break away from the United Kingdom and be their own country again? or is Great Britain going to have part of itself that's part of the EU and part that it's not? And they're saying that the Brexit could be delayed even further over these debates. Delay, 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 delay. All right, we're going to take a phone call. Dustin in New Jersey. Aloha, Dustin. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
+8 white helmets for Germany. So you got to add that into the other German people that they're getting.
Yep.
That's all they're taking is 8.
Well, that's
I think
good.
Trudeau needs to be impeached or something. Yeah. All these countries know what's going on. You know, they know what's going on. The people are coming out again. Mike, are you going on YouTube? You've been reading through the message board? People know or starting to know what's going on when you're just reading through the message. They know these are ISIS. These are Al-Nusra Front. They're terrorists.
Yes.
They know. But what the heck can we do about it, you know? Besides, we all know about it, you know? We're in such a crappy situation where we're in this mode where a lot more people are finding out, but they're not listening to us because we're nobodies anymore, you know?
Well,
it's a shame.
I'm seeing more and more articles coming on out whose point of view is simply that, you know, this open borders flood of refugees and illegal immigrants and or current terrorists is a threat to the people. And the people have been relying on the government to keep them safe, and the government has failed. The government has basically gone over to the other side saying, no, we're going to bring more of these people in here. And I'm hearing more and more talk about vigilantism. And I don't want to see that happen because you're talking about, you know, people of a country who are not really well trained to go up against, you know, experienced terrorist groups going out into the streets. But it does look like it's coming up to a breaking point. And people are beginning to recognize that election systems around the world have been hijacked. Apparently, George Soros is heavily invested in election machine companies all over the United States and around the rest of the world. People are realizing they're not living in a democracy anymore. They're living in a Sorosocracy with the illusions of democracy. And they go and they vote, but it doesn't really matter. It's just for theater. Just like all those Democratic primary voters in 2016 who donated to the DNC and went to the primaries and voted for Bernie Sanders and then had the DNC say, no, we're going to go with Hillary Clinton. Thank you for going along with the charade, but, you know, we're going to go with Bernie Sanders. And people around the world are really starting to look at that. And what was it John Kennedy used to say? If peaceful revolution becomes impossible, violent revolution becomes inevitable. And I think we're...
Hang them high.
Yeah. I'm very worried. I'm very worried. You know, this could turn into a situation, at least here in the United States, where you have the illegal immigrants and the refugees just fighting against the general population nationwide, and that would be an absolutely perfect condition for the federal government to declare a national emergency and throw what's left of our Constitution into the shredder and transition us to an absolute tyrannical dictatorship.
Well, what's going on here, Mike, with like Black Lives Matter, Antifa, these are the early seeds of a soft coup like we did in Ukraine and Iran in the 50s and the South America country. It has come home.
Yep.
It has actually come home, and they're using these people, and, you know, what are they going to do? Give them some guns, some rocket launchers, and, say go to town? You know, I mean, you don't know this. You know, they can stir up a lot of destruction. Look at Syria. Did you ever see a drone footage of the place? I mean, my God, Mike.
Oh,
I mean,
they've ruined the place. I mean, you look at any of the nations that the U.S. has gone into in the last 17 years and find a before picture and an after picture, and it's just heartbreaking to see these former very lovely cities, places, just reduced to absolute rubble. And of course the people who live there still have to live there, and I'm sure they walk around all the time saying, well, you know, over here there used to be this beautiful mosque, and over here there was this beautiful church, and over here there was this wonderful statue, and they're all rubble now.
Live and let live. And what happened to self-determination? You know, they don't even want you to have self-determination. They want you to have open borders. That's how much of a piece of a garbage these people. And Mike, remember there was that guy who had the footage before and after of Libya?
Yes.
Oh my God! I mean, it was. Yeah, you probably saw those photos. It was the same spot after it was devastated.
Yes.
It was like it didn't even resemble of the city. You know. Hey, Mike, I wanted to switch gears if I still have time. About remember Trump when he said Germany was under the thumb of Russia for their natural, getting the pipeline gas, and then wouldn't he make a deal with Europe? Buy more liquefied natural gas. It's all economics.
That's exactly right. I mean, the U.S. has ramped up domestic production of oil and gas in this country, including fracking and everything else. They're drilling into all the reserves. They're drilling off the coast. They're now putting out more oil and gas than Saudi Arabia can. We don't know how long that's going to last. But now that they're producing all of this product, they've got to find somebody to buy it, or they've got to force somebody to buy it.
I'd say 7 years the U.S. has enough to push that out. Russia's still number one. I don't think we'll ever overtake Russia because they got to untapped. And remember, Venezuela's got the largest, reserves?
Yes.
And so does Iran, the largest gas reserves of the world. So there's a lot of untapped potential over there. It's one of the reasons why we want Venezuela and Iran. It's not what we have, it's what they have, like to control it.
Yeah,
but
and
Mike,
make sure it's all traded for U.S. dollars.
Exactly. Mike, real quick, I wanted to say, now I'm going to forget about the Trump with Junker. Junker looked like crap. Did you see him sitting next to Trump? He looked like he was Junker. But did you know Mercedes is going to supposedly close a plant in the U.S. that's 10,000 jobs? And BMW is too, and they're moving the plants to China.
Yeah, I heard about that. Well, part of the problem is this new framework for zero tariffs with Europe. Automobiles are excluded, and yeah.
Mike, I hate to say this, but maybe we should have one amount of money for the like just no reserve currency, or the basket should all be the same, and have free trade. But if I don't know, there's got to be a different system because it ain't working out, and it's going to get worse.
It isn't.
You know what I mean?
The U.S. basically weaponized its status as the reserve currency of the world, but it's no longer exclusive because other currencies are now being used for reserve and for cross-border trading, and the U.S. is trying to stop that. Because without forcing the rest of the world to use U.S. dollars for cross-border trade and banking, there's hardly anything else keeping the U.S. economy propped up or the value of the dollar propped up. The value of the dollar is based almost entirely now on its demand internationally for cross-border trade and banking. But that demand is in decline.
That's why Russia just dumped theirs. They only got $15 billion left in, I believe,
in their treasuries.
What they have, treasuries.
Yep.
Yeah, that's it. So China's got, I think, $1 trillion still, or 1.2 trillion, or something like that. All right, thanks, Mike.
All right, thanks an awful lot. We're going to let you go. We're going to do a shout-out to our on-air affiliates who are just now rejoining our network. And yes, China does have a little over $1 trillion in U.S. treasuries, and if Trump really annoys them, they could dump them all at once. And that would be an issue. Getting on back to Great Britain and Brexit. Apparently, Great Britain is starting to stockpile medicine and blood supplies in the event of a no-deal Brexit because Britain currently relies on 370 million packs of medicine from the EU a month, as well as blood plasma supplies and radioactive isotopes used in X-rays. Well, you can make a tube that generates X-rays. You don't need a radioactive isotope. So basically, the British government is getting ready for a no-deal Brexit because they will be cut off from the EU. The EU has made that very, very clear. If Great Britain exits and doesn't make the EU happy, that English Channel is basically going to become a new wall, a new uncrossable zone. All right, here's a cautionary tale, and it involves a lady named Rebecca Shaw, mother of 4, And she wound up spending 5 months in jail because a police officer came to assist her when her car ran out of gas, but then started asking her about the car's contents and said, you know, what have you got here? And he saw some pills, and he said, what are these? And she said, they're vitamins, which is what they were. And the cop said, well, they don't look like vitamins to me. I think they're opioids. And he did a test on them with a field test kit that came back positive for opioids. And he arrested this mother of 4 and put her in jail for 5 months, because it took 5 months for the police lab to come on back and say, there's nothing there. There's no opioids here. Here is the issue. The police are using these field test kits that are notorious for false positives. It happens all the time, and a lot of people have been arrested. Apparently, there have been tens of thousands of people who've been even convicted and served time because the cases against them relied on these horribly unreliable field drug test kits, and the police labs didn't follow up as they are supposed to do. So Rebecca Shaw is now suing the police department and the company that makes these test kits. And it's another reminder that in our current economy, if you were, companies are allowed to manufacture faulty products as long as it's making money. And in this case, the faulty products are able to seriously disrupt lives. And even the company that makes them says they're 90% accurate, maybe. And so people will be arrested on these things. They'll be talked into plea deals. They'll get a felony on their criminal record. All because this company wanted to make a cheap little product and sell it to the police forces, and the police forces are using it here. All right, we're going to take another phone call. James in Sacramento, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind? James, are you there? Okay, he turned off. Following up on that last story, though, we need to look back and remember the biggest law enforcement scandal in Massachusetts history. Now, this actually happened quite a while ago, but it involves this lady named Annie Dukan, who worked in the law enforcement laboratory, and she was falsifying drug tests to help prosecutors wrongfully convict people. And apparently there were other technicians in this lab who were literally, while on the job, smoking crack cocaine and taking LSD while testing for drugs and filling out reports. Now, when the state of Massachusetts first found out about this, they tried to cover it up. They wanted to keep all of those wrongful convictions hidden from the public, and especially from those who were wrongfully convicted. So, now, here's an interesting little story. This is coming on out from InfoWars, and it's talking about a UN plan to flood America with 600 million migrants. Now, that's almost double the current population of legal American citizens. And supposedly, this UN document, which is entitled Replacement Migration, is it a solution to declining and aging populations, basically says these refugees, these migrants, are needed to keep the population of the United States growing so that the government can basically, continue to harvest tax revenue and have soldiers and workers and so on. The problem is adding that many people to the country that quickly is not going to work. And to be very honest, in looking through this document, it looks like somebody just thought this would be a good idea, and they really didn't work it out. It's just more globalist bovine excrement. Now then, on the other side of the issue of declining population, and by the way, the birth rate in the U.S. is declining, and it may be due to that epicite gene, a Democratic congressional candidate in Pennsylvania, Scott Wallace, wants to tax parents who have more than 2 children as, quote, irresponsible breeders, end quote. And Scott Wallace, he's a population control zealot. He's donated over $7 million to population control groups. He's supported and endorsed by Planned Parenthood and NOW. So if our population needs to be replenished, why are they trying to take us the other direction? Bring in migrants, get rid of the indigenous Americans? I don't know. We got to take a break for commercials. We got a caller waiting on the line, and we'll be right back.
Do you or someone you know suffer from chest pain, blood pressure, cholesterol, or irregular heartbeat? Are you looking for a more natural solution to overcome these health challenges? You hear the ads all the time. If this stuff's so good, why doesn't my doctor prescribe it? That's easy. Doctors are not trained in natural medicine. Extendivite Heart Tonic does want you to be as healthy as you can be, and it really works. Take Extendivite for 6 months and your doctor will say, I don't know what you're doing, but don't stop. It's working for you. Get the dependability of Extendivite. Just see how you feel in 6 months. A 2-month supply of either capsules or liquid is only $69.95 plus shipping and handling. Call 1-877-928-8822. That's 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
Folks, we're living in a world the likes of which we've never perceived any clearer than we do now. The plan for global governance has been in the works for generations and would have likely been achieved by now, but for the fact that the globalists left open their Achilles heel. With all their tools, Federal Reserve System, fiat currency, no child left behind, and then Common Core education introduced to our schools to dumb us down, vaccines, pharmaceuticals to lobotomize us, GMO foods, insertion of compromised or bought and paid for politicians, judges, mainstream media propaganda, all pieced together like a puzzle designed to ultimately bring the world under submission. But with all their strategy, they forgot one thing: knowledge. And knowledge is power. With knowledge, their bombardment is nullified. Folks, with that, as brilliant and knowledgeable as you've become, among the wisest audience of any radio audience in the world, and you are, I want you to take a moment to reflect and ask yourself, how much of that knowledge did I obtain from Republic Broadcasting Network? How high has my consciousness been raised since I've been a listener? How fast am I now able to discriminate truth from fake news by being a Republic Broadcasting listener? How clear am I now able to see the world since I've been listening to RBN? Ask yourselves those questions, folks. Then ask yourself, what is that knowledge worth to me? Like my morning coffee, how would I survive without it? A voice of truth in a sea of lies. Do we not all need to make sure it survives? Like public broadcasting, we are now finding we can only survive with listener support. Censorship, advertisers being attacked, truth itself being attacked. It's the only way through this. We at Republic Broadcasting humbly ask you to become a supporter. Look at your budget and make a determination of what Republic Broadcasting is worth to you and what you can afford on a monthly basis. Go to republicbroadcasting.org and pledge $20, $30, $40, $50, if possible, $100 a month or more if it's affordable. Click the donate button and become a regular monthly donor. Assure both us and yourself that Republic Broadcasting truth will continue to flow like that morning coffee. The network thanks you.
If you got the money, honey, we got the bombs. We'll plant them anywhere you like and blow up anyone. Whip this world into a frenzy, killing babies, dads, and moms. If you got the money, honey, we got the bombs. If you got the money, well, we won't say we did.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. We're going to go back to the phones, and apparently James from Sacramento is back here. So, James, what's on your mind today?
Yeah, actually, Michael, I'm a different James from Sacramento.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I've been listening to you for years, brother.
Okay.
I've never called in. I'm not a call-in person. Oh, hang on, I dropped you. Are you okay?
Well, I got a little bit of a headache.
Yeah. Hey, I was just, listening to some stuff, and this guy in Germany where he's from Niger, and kills his wife and cuts his head off of his baby. And, it's just this crazy stuff from these people that are from those countries. One of the things I'm tripping on is, I understand a little bit about psychology and a little bit about sociology. And if you have a war for many, many years, and then people just get so, dead, they're emotionally dead to, the seeing people die and stuff.
Yes.
And I'm saying that because I grew up in L.A. Trust me, I've seen some bad shit in L.A.
Yeah.
Sorry about my language. I'm sorry. Yeah. I hear these stories, and that's one of the things I think about is, has anybody ever looked into that concept around where these people are just damaged? They're just damaged people. And I hate to say it, but I've dated a couple of gals that were heavily molested, and they were damaged. It was hard to get a relationship with them, you know.
Well, trauma damages you. That's the whole point of trauma. Is you do carry that with you for the rest of your life, and it will affect you. And if you're living in a war zone, or if you're living in, in Los Angeles in gang area, you do become desensitized to it. And I remember about the time that Claire and I were thinking we should get out of Southern California because we were getting threatened over that Vince Foster case. There were two other incidents that had happened, which already had us thinking about maybe leaving that part of California anyway. And the first was just going out for a walk with the dog in the morning and seeing a dead body just right there in the middle of the road. And the second one was witnessing a shotgun killing in an argument over a parking space. So you see that kind of stuff. It does affect you.
Like some kind of drug addiction and stuff. It reminds me of that Neil Young song.
Okay.
Dead man lying by the side of the road.
Yeah. Well, this one was in the middle.
Paper spies. Anyway. It's just, I look at these immigrants that are coming into these countries, even our country, even out of Mexico and Central America. And they've been so indoctrinated from the time they were children, because it's been going on for a long time. All of this violence and this drug stuff, and I don't know what's going on in Africa and North Africa, but it's obviously something that's really bad. And you grow up in those environments and you just become immune to it.
Yeah. Or it's like when you serve in the military and you're over there and you do multiple tours of duty and you come on back and it's not. I remember back when I was in college, there was a big issue with some Marines who had just apparently blown a gasket and were committing fatal acts of domestic violence, and they said it's the Marine training. The Marine training was doing it. And again, the issue with any kind of migration is that you're not getting the best of the people from the source country. The people in Mexico who are making it, who've got businesses, who are not violent, who are doing well, they're not going to pull up stakes and move. We're getting the people who couldn't make it in their home country. We're getting the people who've been radicalized in their home country. They lived by violence in their home country. So what are they going to do when they get here?
And the other thing that you always talk about, which is that we actually broadcast, come up here and get free stuff. Come up here. So come up here and live the American way, get free stuff. And it does, and it entices them, and we don't get the best of the best, obviously.
Yeah, but they don't come up here and live the American way. I'm sure that's what they're told, is they'll step across the border into America and they'll start living like Americans do. But they don't. If you go into the areas where they congregate, they go back to living as they did in their home country. They go back to old habits and old patterns.
Michael, I got to tell you something. I've done a lot of work with people that are damaged, and they're Americans, but they don't live like Americans. They're damaged. They've got problems, and it's hard for them to deal in society. So, I mean, I can understand that someone from another country, it's harder for them to try to be an American as it is for somebody that's been born and raised here, that has their psychological problems because they're damaged.
All right, well, James, thank you for the call. I'm going to have to let you go.
One other thing I wanted to tell you was I wrote a poem.
Okay, James, stay on hold. Stay on hold. We have to take a break for commercials. I will come back to you.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
Homeowners, are you in foreclosure, expecting to be served with a foreclosure lawsuit, or suspect your lender has coerced you into an illegal mortgage transaction? A huge number of mortgages made in the last 10 years have legal issues and are possibly defective. State laws and the U.S. Supreme Court have upheld that defective mortgage documents are grounds for foreclosure defense and for counterclaims in favor of the homeowner. If your mortgage has been sold or assigned since closing the loan, it may be defective and you may be paying the wrong party, and the lender may not have standing or the right to foreclose or collect payments under the law. If you would like to know if your mortgage is legal or not, or know if you are paying the right party, we can help. Our initial consultations are free of charge. We are not attorneys. We are legal researchers and work closely with experienced lawyers who know how to help you find the evidence to help you keep your home. Call toll free 1-855-2-KEEP-IT. That's 1-855-2-KEEP-IT today.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
Do you or a loved one suffer migraine headaches? Listen to what scientist Kurt Hendricks has to say.
If you are one of the millions of people who get migraines, you need to know about MiGrelief. Hi, I'm Kurt Hendricks, the scientist who created MiGrelief, the patented dietary supplement that addresses nutritional deficiencies in adults and children with migraines. Thousands of physicians and pharmacists recommend MiGrelief.
Call 800-MIG-7354 or visit MIG911.com.
Without the right accessories, any guy can be off the mark. Whether you've invested thousands in your arsenal or you own a single trusted firearm, a visit to AROutfitting.com is in order. It's one of the finest online selections of tactical optics and AR parts and add-ons, like EOTech, quick target acquisition with no peripheral loss. Browse the full range of Nikon scopes and binoculars. AROutfitting.com can illuminate your world with Streamlight gun-mounted lights from keychain to large handhelds up to 1,100 lumens. Find some stability with Battenfield tactical bipods. AirOutfitting.com has CMMG gun parts, barrels, assemblies, handguards, part kits, and more. Plus magful clips and magazines. I know I've got you excited, so take a breath. Head to AirOutfitting.com. The site's super easy to navigate and features a ton of technical info, including links to manuals. We also welcome vendor and manufacturer inquiries. Remember, if you don't see it, we can get it at AROutfitting.com.
What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero. You're listening to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. And we're still talking with James in Sacramento. And James, you said you had one more thing you wanted to share with us.
Actually, I didn't want to share that with you. I just wanted to let you know I was going to email it to you and see if Claire can do something with it, because I know she does her music stuff.
Yes.
And at least the way I title it is Kids Don't Cry Anymore.
Well, I look forward to seeing it. I'm not sure I agree with that because I've seen a lot of kids crying, especially the Democrats. Back on Election Day 2016. Remember all those kids crying?
Yeah, you I look forward to you seeing it. So, okay.
All right. Well, thank you very much for the phone call. We're going to let you go.
Aloha, brother, and mahalo.
Aloha and mahalo. We're going to let you go. The phone lines are now open again, 800-313-9443. Now, the other day we were talking about this amazing ruling from the 9th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals, which is very, very liberal, and they actually came down on the side of the Second Amendment. There was this lawsuit began right here in Hawaii, Young versus Hawaii, because local Hawaii law says a concealed carry or open carry permit is only issued once you've convinced the local police chief you're engaged in an activity where the urgency or the need has been sufficiently indicated and the applicant is engaged in the protection of life or property. In other words, confining the carrying of weapons to, for example, security guards. Ordinary citizens not allowed. And Young took this to the 9th Circuit Court of Appeals, who said the Second Amendment covers open carry of firearms at all times, no permit needed. And because it's a federal court of appeals, this sets a legal precedent that this applies in all states. Now, I think the more law-abiding people are seen carrying guns, the less likely it is the bad people are going to do anything. They'll just decide to go home and watch TV, or they'll go see a movie. They won't go into a shopping mall to use it as a giant open-air shooting gallery. The idea that somebody might shoot back is, in fact, a deterrent. And again, go back to the example of Kennesaw, Georgia. About 8 years ago, they mandated every home had to have a working firearm, and crime dropped by 80%. There's the lesson. And that's not unique. Everywhere you go in the world, the more that you disarm the law-abiding citizen, the more crime you will get. Look at places like Chicago or Baltimore, where the law-abiding citizen is allowed to carry arms, crime goes down. The criminals go someplace else. They don't want to get shot. Now, as part of this settlement, actually, this is a Second Amendment Foundation brought a suit against the State Department regarding Cody Williams. And as part of the settlement, this was about the distribution of 3D printing data sets for various weapons. And they tried to shut him down, and the government admitted that data is not a weapon, and data is protected by the First Amendment. So they finally had a settlement. And part of that settlement was the government has now admitted that semi-automatic firearms below 50 caliber are no longer seen as military equipment or weapons of war. So the government is now admitting AR-15s are not weapons of war. And that is a major victory. And apparently one of Cody Williams' data sets is for a weapon based on the AR-15. So that's a victory for gun rights as well. And the reality here is, all around the world, everywhere you go, the more guns you have in the general population, the less homicides there are. You can plot it on a graph. The gun grabbers don't want you to say that. They want to say, oh, the guns are causing it all, and nobody really protects themselves. That's their latest one. That it's a myth that law-abiding gun owners protect themselves from crime any better than the police would. The police don't protect you from crime. They show up after it's all over. I mean, the police didn't stop my Honda from being stolen either time. They showed up after it was all over. They filled out the paperwork, and we went and we got the remains of the car. That's it. Now, I'm not the sort of person to sit out there on the roof of my car with a weapon to protect it. I settled for an alarm this time. But when a crime is in the process of being committed, there are only two parties there, the perpetrators and the victims. And the only way to stop that crime from happening is for the victims to have arms equal to, if not superior, than the perpetrators. then everybody says, let's just call this off and we're all going to go home. And I know because many years ago, living in North Hollywood, I went through this myself. I chased a burglar out of our home with a legally owned firearm. And I'm very glad I didn't have to pull the trigger. But it did work. Just that laser dot on the guy's forehead, and he was gone. And I called the police to file a report. They never showed up. They didn't want to take a police report that says a law-abiding gun owner protected his home and property and life with a legal firearm. That was it. Even back then, the bias was there. Now, as you know, Fox News led with a story that ISIS was taking control, or taking credit rather. Sorry about that. Didn't get a lot of sleep last night. ISIS is taking credit for the deadly Toronto attack. And the Canadian authorities have come on out and again reiterated there is no evidence to substantiate that this gunman who killed 2 people was connected with ISIS in any way. Remember, the guy was mentally ill. He was suffering depression. He was being treated professionally for depression. Can you say SSRI, kids? I knew you could. That really is a problem. But it makes money, and that makes it okay. Yes, we'll sell you pills that might drive you to suicide and make you kill your family, but yeah, we're making a profit here. You don't want to get in the way of us making a profit. And by the way, if you look very carefully at those package inserts on a lot of medications, not just SSRIs, they'll say, yes, can cause serious depression, can lead to suicide. Even some of those glitzy TV commercials now, that voice at the end that's talking really rapidly, I'm starting to note where it says can lead to suicidal thoughts. Why are you even putting that medication out there if there is that risk? Now, yesterday we were talking about how the Washington Post was chastising Donald Trump for not immediately believing what U.S. intelligence agencies said about Russian meddling in the election. How dare you not believe them? And we went down a very long list of all the times that the CIA and the FBI have totally blown it. And I decided to enlarge the list today because basically back in 1996, right about this time of year, there was a private security guard who found an explosive device in Olympic Park in Atlanta, thereby saving hundreds of people from injury and death. And the FBI, without any evidence, turned around and accused him of being the perpetrator. And he was smeared in the U.S. corporate media, and it took them years to find the actual culprit, probably because they wasted time and energy harassing an innocent man. And they were making a big deal about the story because this was just about a week after the shoot down of TWA 800, I think, and they were looking for a distraction. And let's not forget how the FBI destroyed Stephen Hatfield by wrongfully accusing him of mailing the anthrax letters right after 9/11. And they left off of him, and they went to another one, and then they dropped him, and they started on another guy who committed suicide, and the FBI said, oh, well, that's it. This guy committed suicide. It had to be him. So there are plenty of compelling reasons why Donald Trump should not, in fact, take what he's told by the intelligence agencies at face value. Again, the CIA flat out lied to John F. Kennedy about the Bay of Pigs. All right, we're going to take a phone call. Jim in Michigan, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, Mike, how you doing? Love your program, my friend.
Thank you.
I was thinking that I know there are federal laws, correct me if I'm wrong, about employers hiring illegal aliens. They can be fined and prosecuted or whatever. I guess my question would be, isn't it the same thing if we have counties and townships, and states, and cities giving illegal aliens welfare? Is that not the same thing? I mean,
yeah,
why?
that's the problem. These are all Title VIII violations. And the problem is, we don't need new laws. We need for the executive branch, nudge, nudge, wink, wink, say no more, to enforce the existing laws. We need some prosecutions here. Every one of those mayors and governors of these sanctuary cities are violating Title VIII by aiding and abetting illegal immigrants. It's a crime to do that. To transport an illegal immigrant is a crime. To give shelter to an illegal immigrant is a crime. Certainly to employ an illegal immigrant is a crime. They're all Title VIII violations, and that's my question. Why isn't Title VIII being enforced? Well, I don't know. Probably for the same reason Title 18 wasn't enforced against Hillary Clinton. All those governors and mayors, they don't mean to be doing wrong. It's called the Comey defense here. But that's something else that tells us our federal government isn't working anymore. It's broken down.
And I'm just thinking, Michael, that if you cut off the funds to these illegals, they're just living here for free. And I think there would be a mass migration back to where they came from. But I don't know. I mean, my whole point is if you're coming from a country that's really bad, why don't you stay there and actually fix it, rather than come and bring us down. So anyways, love your program, and thanks for your input, my friend.
All right. Well, you're absolutely right about that. That's really what they should do, is if they don't like conditions in their country, work to fix it. That's what we're all doing here in the United States of America. And if you cut off that financial incentive, they won't be coming across that border, because nobody's going to walk across that border knowing that they're not going to be able to work, they're not going to find a place where they can stay, they're not going to eat. Why would anybody do that?
What a great idea. I wish we had laws to put that in force, Mike.
We do have the laws. They are not being enforced.
I know,
that's the problem.
I know. Okay, thanks, Mike.
All right, thank you for the phone call. We're going to let you go. Yeah, if we start, even just as an example, grab some of these open border politicians, these sanctuary city mayors, and throw them in prison for violating Title VIII. We could turn this thing around. And I'm sorry, but that's what Donald Trump, as head of the executive branch, ought to be doing. And it's rather interesting to hear Attorney General Jeff Sessions try to defend Rod Rosenstein by saying Congress should be working on illegal immigration. Congress doesn't need to do a thing about illegal immigration. The laws are already there on the books. And in fact, it is Jeff Sessions' Department of Justice that is supposed to be enforcing them. So the failure is his. All right. Let's talk a little bit about computers. There's a lot going on. Apparently, the stockholders in Facebook are now demanding the resignation of Zuckerberg as chairman of the board. There's a smaller movement that says he should also no longer be the CEO. The stockholders are very upset over the scandals that have hit Facebook, the privacy issues, the spying issues, and they're really upset about just how much money they lost in the recent downturn. And that's one thing you don't want to do, is get a stockholder angry because they're losing money. So we may be seeing a major change to Facebook, and hopefully they'll get somebody in there who will remember that Facebook is supposed to be a business getting people to communicate with each other, not a device to issue propaganda and impose a particular ideology on the world. Meanwhile, over at Mozilla, one of their executives is saying that Google's redesign of YouTube is causing YouTube to slow down on non-Chrome browsers. And Chris Peterson, the software community's technical program manager, tweeted on Tuesday that the video sharing site loads at a fifth of the speed on non-Chrome browsers due to its architecture. Now, apparently there is a plugin for Firefox out there that will reduce that. But again, is this an appropriate use of Google's monopoly? To simply say, our browser gets the full speed, full bandwidth from YouTube, and everybody else gets the slow lane? There are people who are out there saying it's time to break up these monopolies like Google. Get some competition into the marketplace, because competition is always good for the end consumer. It means lower prices and higher quality. When you have monopolies, they get the attitude they can just sell you whatever they want at whatever price they want, and it doesn't even have to care if it works or not. Now, Facebook is also in trouble over in Europe. They're losing users there as well, because the people in Europe don't like being spied on, and they don't like being censored. So this weaponization of social media to bolster the liberal cause, it has come at a huge price. Zuckerberg himself took a $14 billion bath today. Now, if that'll wake him up to the realities of what he's doing and the cost of what he's doing, maybe, maybe not. But more and more people are moving over to Yandex and DuckDuckGo and these other alternative sites. And as soon as I can, I'm moving from YouTube over to Real Video. I'm still waiting for a confirmation that my account has, my channel has been approved. And then I'm going to start moving everything over there. My live stream on this program, all of Claire's music videos, everything that we've done over the last 17 years on YouTube. Will be sent over to Real Video, and I'm going to close my YouTube channels. No more. All right. We're going to take a break for commercials, and we'll be right back.
Do you know there is an ongoing war right here in America? Are you aware that U.S. citizens have been classified as enemies of the state since 1933? Have you recognized that our entire government is really a vast network of interlocking corporations engaged in commerce? Look up Title 28, Section 3002. Tune in to In Defense of Humanity on Saturday nights at 7 p.m. Central Time. Find out what's really going on and learn how to protect yourself and your family as flesh and blood men and women living in a corporate reality.
Many people write us about their experience with Extendivite. Allow me to read you one from Amazon.com. I just wanted you to know I saw my doctor and I laughed because he said, "I don't know what you're doing, but keep doing it." I have been taking Extendivite. I had borderline high blood pressure, heart flutter, high cholesterol. I changed my diet and included Extendivite with an amazing turnaround for the better. A few months later, I had a doctor's appointment and took a stress test. I passed. No heart flutter. Blood pressure was perfect. My doctor even took me off my medicine. I thank you truly from the bottom of my heart. This stuff works, and I'm so grateful for Extendivite. Thank you, Justin G. Tell us your story. Get Extendivite today. Call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
I'm getting older and noticing that my body just doesn't work as well as it used to. So I like to keep fit as possible by hitting the gym a few times a week. Recently, I started having a nagging bicep pain, and it got so bad I couldn't even lift the weights. When I was complaining about it to a friend, he told me about Angioprim. He said chelation helps remove toxins, heavy metals, and cholesterol in veins and arteries that may cause blockages. You know, after just 1 week of taking Angioprim, the pain was gone, and now I'm back in the gym full strength. Scientific research proves the active ingredient in Angioprim has superior oral chelation action that helps promote cardiovascular health. So to learn more, go to angioprim.com. That's ANGIOPRIM.com IOPRIM.com or talk to a trained consultant. Call Angioprim toll free at 877-882-7221. You'll feel better with more energy. Call 877-882-7221 or go to the website angioprim.com.
What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero. Join Mike on the air. Call toll-free 800-313-9443. 800-313-9443.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. And earlier today, I got an email from somebody saying that they were trying to locate the archive of my YouTube videos from the radio show on YouTube. And the search engine wouldn't bring them up. They searched under my name. They searched under what really happened. And so, yeah, YouTube is practicing the same kind of censorship that has led to Facebook's downturn. And hopefully it'll catch up with them. Now, there is this underground network on the dark web called the Mayor. And it's basically how fraudsters communicate with each other. It's very well organized. We've gone way, way past the idea of just some script kiddie in his parents' basement hacking into a bank account and getting the money. It's very sophisticated. So the Mayor, this collective, they hack bank accounts and steal bank card details, which they then turn around and sell to other crooks. Now, you can basically go to the Mayor and pay a small sum, and then the Mayor hacks an account for you and transfers far more in stolen funds using Western Union. The customer is given a secret code to take to Western Union to collect the cash. This is just incredibly sophisticated stuff. And this was over in the Daily Mail. And maybe it's a good reason to stop using banks, but it's another reminder that here in the United States of America, at least, this kind of criminal activity seems to be very much tolerated. Unless somebody hacks into a government computer or some favored corporation, nothing's really being done. It's just running rampant. Now, Google has come up with an interesting way to deal with phishing attacks. Basically, on their work-related accounts, going back to last year, Google has issued physical security keys. Now, these are USB-based devices that are used to identify the employee to the work-related computer. There's no two-factor authentication process. Therefore, nobody can get a password and log in remotely. You have to have physical possession of that key to get into the machine. A while back, they used to call them dongles. I don't know why. But it does make a lot of sense. And in areas where I wanted to keep information secure, I've used a USB key. So maybe it's time for passwords to go away and for people to have just this little tiny USB key on your key ring, because you're not going to leave it behind. Those are your car keys and house keys here. Now, over in New York, Cuomo has started unveiling facial scanning at the New York toll plazas, the toll booths. Big Brother surveillance. We talked about this the other day, where when you go through the toll booths, you are scanned and you are then compared with databases. Turns out there's a problem with that, and I've been talking about it's not a mature technology. It's prone to failure. So the American Civil Liberties Union basically tested Amazon's facial recognition system. And the ACLU scanned the faces of all 535 members of Congress against 25,000 public mugshots using Amazon's Open Recognition API. Now, none of the members of Congress were in the mugshot lineup, but Amazon's system generated 28 false matches, a finding that the ACLU and anybody with common sense says raises serious concerns about the use of facial recognition. But it's the latest whiz-bang, and the police departments want them. You get to pay for them. We'll be right back.
Tired of being lied to by mass media? It's growing more and more apparent today that news is received less and less through standard media outlets. Even with a growing audience every day, RBN is beginning to direct more efforts into social media. Social media and the use of the internet is fast becoming the primary source of people for news, regardless of demographic. RBN has set out to provide some of the best news on the internet through republicbroadcasting.org, and also has begun to use the tools to our advantage by way of social media. Republic Broadcasting is now operating a Facebook page to function as yet another avenue to have our collective voice reach new audiences across not only America, but across the globe as well. The Facebook page features not only news, but also an RBN player to listen to our broadcasts. Get involved by visiting facebook.com/Republic Broadcasting and liking our page and share it with your friends and family, because you can handle the truth.
You're listening to the Republic Broadcasting Network, because you can handle the truth.
What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero, because World War III is a really bad idea. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show, hour number 3. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. Now, over at Twitter, research has been confirming that Twitter's quality filter discrimination system is heavily biased against conservatives. And apparently Vice News went on in and they did a lot of searches and a lot of checks, basically searching for various liberal posters and conservative posters, and discovered conservative ones were definitely being suppressed. They were being shadow banned, but not the Democrats. And Twitter's come on out there on the defensive saying, well, you know, there are still bugs in the system here, of course, but the bias is just so obvious that now Trump has said there's going to be an investigation into Twitter's discriminatory and illegal shadow banning of Republicans. And I hope he spreads that to the entire social media industry, if you will, because it's been getting out of control. Now, Twitter apparently, as of last report, has said they're going to be revising the system to balance it out. But I think what needs to happen is these social media companies need to be defined in the same legal status as like the telephone system. It's just all about communication. And you're not allowed to basically impose your political ideology on a phone call. And you shouldn't be allowed to do it on social media. Now, PayPal is now starting to censor journalists who criticize Israel. And if you'll remember, many, many years ago here at whatreallyhappened.com, we had to go through that ourselves. So this pro-Israel activist, Benjamin Weinthal, has succeeded in persuading PayPal to close down the account of the French online publication Agence Media Palestine. And this constitutes censorship as it denies journalists the means to raise money for their work and retaliates against them for ideas they express. And Agence Media Palestine says they're considering legal action. Now, Weinthal presents his efforts as reportage for the Jerusalem Post on the actions of companies like PayPal. But what he's really doing is instigating crackdowns by feeding information about those he's targeting. And he openly admits it's exaggerated. It's distorted. You know, we've got to get them shut down. So, yeah, we're going to lie about these people. Now, part of the problem here is when you have companies like PayPal who will accept a complaint like this without verifying it for themselves. Now, I'm being banned on Wi-Fi feeds on AT&T and various retail establishments and so forth. The reason given, hate and racism. And I'm almost willing to bet that whoever put me on that ban list didn't actually go on out and try and verify whether or not the claims made about my site were accurate or not. They just said, oh, All right, thank you for the report, and boom, you're on the list. Now that, I think, would open up anybody who's been put on a list like that for a defamation lawsuit, maybe a class action, saying that you shouldn't be banning us on the basis of unverified allegations that we are this or that objectionable content. And in any event, we're still back to that idea that the First Amendment says we're allowed a right to our opinions and to express them, to initiate a dialogue and discussion. Of course, those who understand they don't really have an argument for their point of view don't want that. They want us silenced. Now, here's where it gets a little bit out there, and it may get some powerful allies on this idea of cleaning up social media. Wikipedia has put Ron Paul and Representative Steve King on their list of white supremacists, right alongside Charles Manson, American Nazi Party founder George Lincoln Rockwell, convicted mass murderer Dylan Roof, and former KKK Grand Wizard Don Black. And apparently Representative Stephen King is also on their list of American white nationalists. Now, I'm hoping that Ron Paul and Representative King are going to say, okay, this has gone just a little too far. There has to be accountability and responsibility. Now, Microsoft just held their research faculty summit where they're bringing everybody together, and the subject under discussion was building a global AI supercomputer. And they're talking about a network, they're talking about an intelligent cloud and an intelligent edge. The data is pre-processed at the edge and shipped in a filtered and aggregated form to the cloud. In the cloud, the data is analyzed and used to train models, which are in turn deployed to both the edge and the cloud to make decisions. This way, computing and AI are infused into virtually all processes of our daily life. The result is a supercomputer at global scale composed of billions of devices with microcontrollers at the edge and millions of servers in the cloud and at the edge. I don't know about you, it sounds suspiciously like they're trying to build Skynet, which would be a bad thing. We're going to do a shout out now to our on-air affiliates who are just now rejoining our network. Now, you remember at the end of the World Cup, Vladimir Putin gave Donald Trump a football, soccer ball, we would call it. And it turned out it had a microchip. And Bloomberg and CNN basically came on out and said, see, this proves Russian perfidy, and he's out there, he's trying to bug Donald Trump. Well, it turns out that the chip was actually put in the soccer ball by its maker, Adidas. And it's part of their online marketing, because if your cell phone is close enough to the soccer ball, it feeds information, advertising, what have you, statistics. And it's nothing nefarious. It's basically a near-field communication tag which allows fans to access player videos, competitions, and other content by bringing their mobile devices close to the ball. And the feature is included in the 2018 FIFA World Cup match ball. It's sold on the Adidas website for $165, although it's now been reduced to $83. And they basically tried to turn it into more Bash Russia propaganda. Now, I'm sure everybody really is spying on everybody else around there, but let's not get ridiculous here. A soccer ball? It's not like Donald Trump is actually going to have that, anywhere but in the backyard, as it were. Over off of the southern Oregon coast, there has been a quake swarm that basically peaked last Tuesday. And the quakes were clustered about 126 miles west of Crescent City, California. There were no tsunami warnings announced. The largest quake recorded was 5.6, which is unusual for that region. And Don Blakeman, over at the National Earthquake Information Center, said the magnitudes haven't been serious. Quakes of this caliber occur fairly often off the coast. Now, here's why this is significant. Because looking at a map of the location of these quakes, they're happening along the Cascadia Fault, which is actually under more pressure than the San Andreas Fault. And geologic evidence shows there have been massive tsunami generating quakes along that fault system in the past. Now, here in Hawaii, our volcano is still volcanoing. It looks like it's about to take out a small harbor facility, port facility for recreational boats. Residents on the Big Island have been warned to stay indoors because the levels of sulfur dioxide are now rising. And as far as the summit of Kilauea, there's this almost regular as clockwork increase in seismicity, then a collapse event, increase in seismicity, then a collapse event. And the magma is still apparently draining out from under Kilauea, out through the vents into the ocean. Here is where there is an area of concern. We don't know exactly, or volcanologists don't know exactly, how big that magma chamber under Kilauea crater is. If it is sufficiently large enough and it empties totally, that entire summit could collapse into a caldera. And there could be a significant displacement of material into the ocean, and that could cause a tsunami. That's always been an area of concern. If you look very closely at Google Earth photos of that part of the south flank of Kilauea, you can see where there's actually a fissure running along the bottom. And the land below that fissure has been moving very, very slowly toward the ocean. And in many ways, it's not unlike the situation you have at Cumbre Vieja over in the Canary Islands, where a big portion of that volcano has sort of slid partway down and then come to a stop. And were there to be a major eruption there, the concern is that could also plop into the ocean and cause a tsunami. And if you look at the floor of the ocean around Hawaii, you will see that there have been many times where big chunks of the island have simply broken off and fallen into the ocean, and they would produce mega tsunamis. Hopefully it's not going to happen here, but a lot of people are very nervous. And a major slump of the Kilauea summit would probably destroy Volcano House, probably destroy the buildings for the Volcano National Park, and probably a lot of damage over in the village of Volcano, which is right there as well. So we'll see what's going to happen, but you know, Mother Nature is at work. She's proving she's still the boss. And I guess we didn't take enough gin up to Madame Pelly when we went to visit, because that apparently is what you appropriately sacrifice to Madame Pelly, is gin. Just poured into the little crack there. We just took a little, one of those miniature bottles. I should have taken a gallon. It's all my fault here. Now, there are other volcanoes that are showing signs of increased activity. Now, the U.S. Geological Survey is still out there insisting there is overall no increase in volcanic activity. Just everybody stay calm, go to work, pay your taxes, do what the government tells you here. But over at Anak Krakatau, the activity there is starting to increase. There have been 3 eruptions in 12 hours at Agung, which is in Indonesia, and a Strombolian eruption at Mount Etna in Italy. So the earth is rocking and rolling there. All right, let's talk about some medical issues here. This is a very alarming story. It's out of the Daily Mail in Great Britain, and it says that pregnant women have more than 50 gender-bending chemicals in their blood, substances that are linked to birth defects and harm a baby's development in the womb, according to this recently released report. And they're talking about chemicals like parabens, which are used as preservatives in cosmetics and skincare. It mimics estrogen. It can cause cancer, weight gain, and reduced muscle mass. BPA, which is added to store receipts to make their writing darker without using inks. It reacts with gestrogen and thyroid hormone receptors. It's been linked to infertility, autism, and ADHD. Then you have triclosan, which is an antibacterial used in soap, body washes, and toothpaste. It's associated with reduced heart health and an underactive thyroid. So they're saying these chemicals may hinder fetal development and cause birth defects. And these chemicals are gender benders. So now all of a sudden I'm wondering if part of all this gender confusion, this gender fluidity, are young people who were exposed to these chemicals in the womb, and it's basically messed them on up. And rather than acknowledge that the chemical industries have yet more victims, they've tried to normalize gender fluidity and make it look like it's a popular pop culture phenomenon that we should just accept. Just like we should accept vaccine-damaged kids, or we should accept, high error rates in facial recognition. That's the new normal. Nothing works as advertised here. But that is very alarming, that pregnant women are being exposed to these chemicals, knowing these chemicals can cause all kinds of harm. Okay, over at Texas Biomedical Research Institute, led by Dr. Ruth Ruprecht, they have zeroed in on a new defense against HIV-1, which is thought to be the virus that causes AIDS. And apparently they treated an animal, test animal, with what's called immunoglobulin M for the first time, and it does seem to protect against HIV-1 infection. In other words, they're coming up with a new vaccine for HIV-1, not a cure for HIV itself. The big money is in vaccines and treatments. Nobody wants to find a cure for anything. That's a bad business model here. And similar sentiments are expressed in this story from VidRebel. You do not have health care. You suffer under disease management control. And it starts out asking, does your doctor talk to you about a plan to help your body build 1 billion new healthy cells a day to maintain good health? Because your body has to build 1 billion new cells a day. Now, American drug companies have 100 drugs to manage the disease known as hypertension. And a lot of it is marketing. And an American doctor will usually consider any blood pressure above 120/80 to be abnormal and sufficient cause to write you a prescription. But in Europe, they don't treat anyone for high blood pressure until it goes over 180. In India, doctors think any blood pressure under 140 is dangerous. And that reminds me of something that happened all those years ago when I was working in Australia. And I was down there and I had a slight whoopsie and I had to go to the doctor. And as is usual, they took my temperature and they took my blood pressure. And I said to the doctor, I know the blood pressure is going to be a little bit high. And he says, no, looks fine to me. And I said, my doctor at home says I have high blood pressure. And he goes, oh, you Americans, your standards are too high. So it's different all over the world, depending upon who is pushing what product here. Now, for those of you being extorted to get the flu shot this year, there's a report out in the New England Journal of Medicine that estimates this year's flu vaccine was only 10% effective against influenza A. But it makes money, and that makes it all right. It makes money. That's all we care about anymore in the United States. That's what makes America great. Profiteering, profiteering, profiteering. Over in Pennsylvania, the Department of Health is stepping up efforts to get people living near nuclear power plants prepared to deal with issues. And the health department is distributing free potassium iodide tablets on August 9th to those who live, work, or attend school within a 10-mile radius of one of the state's 5 nuclear power plants. Now, as you know, when Chernobyl blew, the Russian government was handing out potassium iodide to the people as they were being evacuated, which didn't help all of them survive. So my question is there something about these power plants that is leading the health department to do this? And would it not be better to deal with the problems of the power plants? If they're no longer safe, it's time to shut them down. nuclear power plants only have a limited lifespan before the neutron flux coming out of the reactor core starts to weaken the metal in the pressure vessel. And there's no way to undo that. And at that point, the reactor has to be decommissioned. But of course, the companies that own these reactors, they want to keep them running. They want to keep making money off of them. And there have been several cases here in the United States where the U.S. government has allowed the operators of nuclear power plants to run them for like 5 years beyond their design lifespan. And they're risking danger here, all for the sake of more profits. All right, we're going to take another break for commercials. Join us on the air, 800-313-9443, and we'll be right back.
Extendivite really works. Just listen to what some people have to say.
About 6 months ago, my wife bought Extendivite. She didn't tell me she was giving it to me. So after about 3 days, I said, maybe the weather's changed or something. I said, my legs feel really good. And she goes, well, I've been giving you this stuff. And it was the Extendivite. And you know that I'm about 75% better. I can actually climb stairs now, and I can get up out of chairs. I can even get down and, I got to work under a table or a computer table and work on a computer. I can actually get back up off the floor. You know what? It's an amazing product. I can't believe, I didn't think anything short of having surgery was going to help.
Extendivite is only $69.95 for a 2-month supply of either capsules or liquid. Call now. That's 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
Folks, we're living in a world the likes of which we've never perceived any clearer than we do now. The plan for global governance has been in the works for generations and would have likely been achieved by now, but for the fact that the globalists left open their Achilles heel. With all their tools, Federal Reserve System, fiat currency, no child left behind, and then Common Core education introduced to our schools to dumb us down, vaccines, pharmaceuticals to lobotomize us, GMO foods, insertion of compromised or bought and paid for politicians, judges, mainstream media propaganda, all pieced together like a puzzle designed to ultimately bring the world under submission. But with all their strategy, they forgot one thing: knowledge. And knowledge is power. With knowledge, their bombardment is nullified. Folks, with that, as brilliant and knowledgeable as you've become, among the wisest audience of any radio audience in the world, and you are, I want you to take a moment to reflect and ask yourself, how much of that knowledge did I obtain from Republic Broadcasting Network? How high has my consciousness been raised since I've been a listener? How fast am I now able to discriminate truth from fake news by being a Republic Broadcasting listener? How clear am I now able to see the world since I've been listening to RBN? Ask yourselves those questions, folks. Then ask yourself, what is that knowledge worth to me? Like my morning coffee, how would I survive without it? A voice of truth in a sea of lies. Do we not all need to make sure it survives? Like public broadcasting, we are now finding we can only survive with listener support. Censorship, advertisers being attacked, truth itself being attacked. It's the only way through this. We at Republic Broadcasting humbly ask you to become a supporter. Look at your budget and make a determination of what Republic Broadcasting is worth to you and what you can afford on a monthly basis. Go to republicbroadcasting.org and pledge $20, $30, $40, $50, if possible, $100 a month or more if it's affordable. Click the donate button and become a regular monthly donor. Assure both us and yourself that Republic Broadcasting truth will continue to flow like that morning coffee. The network thanks you.
When all this twisted steel was swept away, did these remaining holes reveal what's really happened?
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. Now, apparently, along with pushing for global depopulation and vaccines for everybody, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation is now stepping in to help the government dictate how much vitamin C you can take. And they've basically convened a workshop to assess methodological approaches to be applied uniformly across countries in setting nutrient intake recommendations. In other words, they want to limit vitamin dosage amounts. We know you need this much, you don't need any more than that. Now, this is very, very transparent here because there's been a lot of research showing that high levels of vitamin C are very effective cures against many diseases. But right now, there is this push to basically keep us all dependent on big pharma, to not allow us to have vitamin C megadosing, to not allow us to have kratom, to not allow us to have medical marijuana. Because if you can make it in your backyard, then you're not supporting the U.S. economy. Everything has to be commoditized. This age of self-sufficiency and doing for yourself and growing for yourself, that's utterly ridiculous. So that's where they're going on that one. So I imagine that probably the Gates Foundation, if not the Gates family themselves, are probably heavily invested in pharmaceutical stocks. Over at Kraft Heinz, they have recalled their Taco Bell cheese dip over a botulism risk, and they've pulled more than 59,000 jars, saying they may contain bacteria, which botulism, of course, can cause paralysis and even death. It's very serious stuff. So this is Taco Bell Salsa con Queso mild cheese dip, and the dates to look for. If you have this in your closet, if the dates, if the best used by dates are anywhere between Halloween of this year to January 23rd of next year, you need to take it back to your supermarket. Now, they've already pulled them off the supermarket shelves, but people may have already bought this stuff. So you want to keep on. Again, this is Taco Bell Salsa con Queso mild cheese dip. So now here's an interesting little story. Glaucoma, as you know, is a serious issue that affects vision, especially in the older people. And researchers have found there is a compound in turmeric that could actually help deal with that. And apparently trials showed that eye drops containing curcumin, which is what gives turmeric its yellow color, slashed the loss of crucial retinal cells in rats. So hopefully that will be available to us humans in the very, very near future. But again, a natural compound that was out there. Now, over in the European Union, there's been a big ongoing debate where Big Ag is out there developing more and more ways of genetic engineering, but at the same time, it's trying to propagandize the public that this really isn't GMO. They've been trying to sell this idea that GMO is no different than nature, which is complete and utter nonsense. And finally, the European Union has come on back, and it said that genetic engineering is genetic engineering. And if you're playing with the DNA, it comes under the heading of genetic engineering, and whatever you're producing comes under the heading of a GMO. So at least in that area, the EU is showing a lot more spine towards the Big Ag than our own government does, which is fully on board with GMO being sold everywhere without being labeled, and saying that, yeah, absolutely, GMOs are not harmful. That's the official word on it. And anybody who says that GMO might be harmful, well, that's just pseudoscience, and it justifies us kicking them off social media. But genetic engineering is, in my opinion, the most dangerous technology we have ever played with, even worse than atomic energy. We're tinkering with the code of life. And especially when you see how reckless corporations have been in other areas like vaccine manufacture or facial recognition systems. The cost of a mistake in genetic engineering could be an extinction level event. And maybe that's a reason why we have never been visited by an advanced alien civilization. Maybe all intelligent civilizations reach this point where they're able to start tinkering with the code that makes their life operate. And they make a mistake and they destroy themselves, and that's it. It's something to think about. But it is very, very dangerous. And once it's out there in the wild, you can't get it back. I'm still worried about that epicite gene. I'm still worried about that a lot. All right, we're going to take a break for commercials, and we will be right back.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
Hi, folks. CBD is the home run hitter for health right now. Why, you ask? Because of what it does for the body. Unfortunately, I can't tell you all about the benefit. You know, there's reasons. Do your due diligence and log on to ancientlifeoil.com. That's ancientlifeoil.com. Ancient Life Oil uses organic ingredients and is blended in coconut oil for some of the best benefits. Legal in 50 states and non-psychoactive. Log on to ancientlifeoil.com. That's ancientlifeoil.com.
Do you worry a lot? Whether you're a college student, busy professional, parent, or grandparent, ongoing stress and elevated levels of the stress hormone cortisol can rob your memory, your health, and your future. Now you can combat the effects of stress and anxiety while improving your memory and recall at the same time with the dietary supplement Calm and Clever. Studies show that the ingredients in Calm and Clever reduce cortisol by as much as 30% in 1 to 2 weeks. Call 1-800-758-8746 or calmandclever.com.
Corporate media dominates the American opinion. Finding independent voices that counter this avalanche is becoming increasingly difficult. With the endless corruption running rampant throughout our government, independent voices are needed more than ever to battle the offensive against our freedoms and liberties. As a listener of RBN, no one understands this concept better than you. Now it's up to you to do your part. The time has come for you to take action and begin broadcasting the truth to hundreds or thousands of people every month. Sound impossible? Quite the contrary. With pointed slogans from LibertyStickers.com, you can reach countless sleeping Americans unaware that they live in a real-life wonderland. LibertyStickers.com has a huge inventory of political bumper stickers and messages that reflect the truth about our government, our politicians, and the future of America. With so many in stock, there's one perfect for you. Visit us today at LibertyStickers.com. Again, that's LibertyStickers.com. Do your part. Your voice is important. Let it be heard.
Many people write us about their experience with Extendivite. Allow me to read you some from Amazon.com. It really does work like the review says it does. I cannot believe that after the first few days, I didn't feel as sluggish or clogged up. It has had a profound impact on my physical, emotional well-being. I'm skeptical as most people about products and their claims, and I never write reviews, but this is a wonderful product and I recommend it to everyone. Great product. It has brought my blood pressure from the mid-150s over the 80s to the mid-130s over mid-80s, along with diet and exercise in just the past couple of months. Excellent. Thank you, David. Tell us your story. Get Extendivite today. Call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendivite.
We the people, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. Now, a while back, of course, we were talking about this incident where this baker was sued for refusing to bake a wedding cake for a gay couple because of the baker's religious convictions. And I commented at the time on how common sense would simply say for the couple, you know, we'll go find another baker. But instead they sued, put the guy out of business. And it's kind of like this hair trigger reaction, you know, do what we want you to do, or we'll sue you out of business. It's lawfare here. Well, in that case, that was a conscious decision by the baker to do that. And again, I remember a time where businesses in the United States did maintain the right to refuse service to any customer, and I don't know when that went away. Over in Dublin, Ireland, there's a somewhat different story. There's a barber who's been ordered to pay 5,000 euros to a transgender man after being found to have discriminated against him when refusing to give him, quote, a short back and sides. Now, this transgender man, Lee McLaughlin, and by the way, I've seen a picture, and he doesn't look like a man. But he told the Workplace Relations Commission that when he sat down to have his hair cut at Charlie's Barbers in Nutgrove Shopping Center, the barber, mistakenly believing he was a woman, replied, "I don't do ladies' hair." And again, the common sense situation would have been, okay, well, thank you, I'll go find someplace else. But no, instead, complain, sue, cause all kinds of problems. Now, Claire Fox was out there talking on Generation Snowflake, saying that we seem to be in an age where children are being raised to be anxious, fragile, to see themselves as powerless victims, perfect sheeple, and on a hair trigger to be offended by anything that happens in front of them, thin skins. And again, I saw the photo of the transgender man, and I can understand exactly why the barber thought he had a woman sitting in his chair. Now, in Ireland, a barber shop is for men only. Women normally go to beauty shops. So it was an honest mistake on the part of the barber, and still he got sued. I think this Lee McLaughlin, if we hadn't been dealing with this hair trigger offensive situation, could have simply said, no, I'm actually a man, I'm transgender. And the barber probably would have said, oh, okay, fine, I'll do the short back and sides. And it just got spiraled out of control, trying to make the point about transgenderism is here. And if that other story about how pregnant women are just loaded up with all kinds of chemicals from our environment, from our cosmetics, from our cleaning products, from our soaps, that cause gender issues, then we may be looking at another case of damage caused to human beings from corporate malfeasance being dressed up to look like it's a political movement. But I think this militancy, this trying to force into, anywhere they want to go, followed by lawsuits if they're not immediately appeased, that's going to backfire. The optics are bad. People are going to look at, especially what happened to that barber. What the baker did, that was a conscious choice. And people are still arguing, was it within his rights? As a shopkeeper, yeah, you can refuse service. But in the case of the barber, it was a legitimate, honest mistake. And he shouldn't have been hit with a fine like that. Somebody should have stepped in and said, look, it was an easy enough mistake to make. All right, let's take a phone call here. Mateus in Canada, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, Michael, just some different topics, if it's okay?
Sure.
Okay, so regarding the $400,000 over to the Hillary Clinton, the Clinton Foundation from Russia?
Yes.
Okay, so just to confirm, that's $400,000, is that correct?
I've heard it both ways, and everybody's saying it was a mistranslation. But the amount doesn't matter. It was an illegal campaign contribution.
Let's just stick with 400,000 then. Yeah, okay, let's just stick with 400,000 then, because my point being that that's still illegal, and D'Souza was jailed for an issue that was like around 30,000, and it wasn't dirty money being crossing state lines illegally with tax evasion, going to a charity that is frauding the actual charity that it's by not spending 51%. This was just D'Souza getting a few of his friends to pool some money together to pitch in for some local Republican campaign. Way less of a crime than this 400,000, and he went to jail.
Yeah, you're
So I
absolutely
just wanted
right
to
here.
pass that along.
And Browder ought to be going to jail, and certainly you need to remember that money was not donated to the Clinton Foundation. It was donated directly to the Clinton campaign. So that's a violation of FEC regulations.
I was almost going to say that's worse because then it's not going to the charity, but it doesn't matter if it goes to the charity or not because they're not spending the money on the charity. It was like 6% of the Haitian money was spent on Haiti, and then a few years later, when there was some oversight where some people went and traveled there to go inspect one of the schools that was supposed to be built, it just was never even built. So even that 6%, even it's supposed to be 51%, even that it's only 6%, even that was all full of fraud.
Well, what they did what they did with the money is instead of going on down and building homes and repairing the damage for the Haitian people, they used that money to basically buy up large chunks of real estate for pennies on the dollar, on which are now being built luxury resorts.
Yeah, isn't that lovely? Like, talk about a grotesque display of wealth in the middle of a devastated population. Okay, a different topic regarding what you were talking about yesterday with potential Trump assassination and relating that to the JFK assassination. So for JFK, there was this big shock.
Yes.
And you were saying that one of the possible motives right now could be that to kind of normalize the concept of an assassination so there's not this big shock. And that's possible. I wanted to present another possible theory that actually would be more in the opposite direction, is that, we'll put it this way. Back when JFK was shot, this is a question, what do you think would have been the difference of the reaction of the actual actions of the public if it wasn't a big shock, it wasn't a big mystery coming out of nowhere, they actually knew who did it, or at least they knew what political party had been advocating it. So take away the shock and now add that they know who did it, basically.
Well, the government, if Trump is assassinated, we'll be given a patsy. But back when Kennedy was assassinated, most Americans still trusted the government. They trusted the corporate media. It wasn't until years after the fact when I actually looked at the magazines that I'd been saving that I spotted the fraud here. And that was right after Jim Garrison had already come on out with his trial against Clay Shaw. But the majority of Americans believed and trusted the government. They accepted the Warren Commission report. And it was something like 30 years before we reached a point where half of Americans realized the Warren report was a cover-up. Today, it's very different. The American people are very distrusting of the government. They're distrusting of the corporate media. If Trump were to be assassinated, there'd be a shock and outrage, and everybody would be looking to find out what really happened. They wouldn't accept the corporate media and government's cover story, and I think that's what they're trying to avoid, is they want to get everybody used to the idea of Trump being assassinated so that when it happens, people say, well, we kind of saw that coming, and yeah, it's a terrible thing. But there wouldn't be the outrage that would power the population to seek their own answers. And I think that's why we're having all these people come on out and talk about Trump being killed or executed. What's her name? The comedian with the severed head and everything. They're trying to desensitize us to that idea.
Right. I didn't express myself very well. I will try one more time. I'm agreeing with you. I'm just theorizing, what if it backfires and the reverse results happen than what they want? Instead of us being desensitized and giving it a bit of a pass, like, oh, I guess we saw that coming, they actually kind of admitted who's doing it, basically. At least they kind of narrowed it down. It's the far left extremists. All the people that have been threatening to do it,
yes,
like all the high-profile people. What if we don't give them a pass? What if we actually trade in shock for rage and actually go after these people and say, you know what, even if you're not actually directly the person who did it, you dug yourself into this hole. You're dirty by this. Like you contributed towards the group consciousness of this at the least, and you might have very well be the one who did it.
I see what you're saying.
So
I see what
I'm
you're
thinking
saying.
it might go. Yeah, it might just blow up in their face, and they might really have made a mistake by basically telegraphing that they want it to happen. So
Yeah,
that's
you're
what I'm-
absolutely right. That could happen, where everybody's going to say, you encouraged this. You all encouraged and created the climate for this. That you're right. It could backfire on them tremendously. Anyway, Mateus, I got to let you go. I got a couple more callers, and we're getting close to the end of the show. Francis in North Carolina, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hello, aloha to you both.
Aloha.
Just two quick thoughts for you. For one, when it talks about charities and so forth, it's not like Trump could not have a Trump Foundation, just like the Clinton Foundation and so forth, to get funds funneling through and so forth ad nauseum. What can I tell you? It's not unexpected for that matter. As for the nuclear power plant scenario, yes, a lot of them are decrepit. A lot of them are falling apart and so forth ad nauseum, let alone the ones that they're building that's new or whatever have you. The real issue is, if not already, why are they being built on a fault line of all places? I mean, come on, you're asking for trouble. Later.
Well, before you go, Francis, there is a Trump Foundation, and while the Clinton Foundation has been given a free pass and nobody's looking at it, the state of New York has been investigating the Trump Foundation. They're trying to find anything there that they can use to damage them and bring them down. As far as building nuclear power plants on fault lines, yeah, it is a really, really dumb thing to do, assuming it's an active fault. There are a lot of fault lines which have ceased to be active. And while the underlying strata may not be as stable as you might like, it's not as dangerous as building it on an active fault line. Now, obviously, plants like San Onofre, which are, huddled right along the San Andreas, which can let go, not a good idea. But, the attitude basically is we're going to build a power plant where the customers need the electricity and hope for the best.
And that ends up being a bigger joke than imaginable, because even if it's not an active fault line, who's to say down the road in about 5, 10, or 15, 20 years it does not become active? I mean, a fault line is a fault line whether it's active or not. Otherwise, nature is going to make a move, and humanity hasn't learned its lesson, especially when it comes to the corporate heads are concerned as far as that type of thing goes. So, anyway, later.
All
Have
right,
fun.
later. All right, thanks an awful lot. I mean, certainly, whoever made the decision to build the Japanese nuclear plants on a shoreline with a known history of tsunami activity, it wasn't well thought out, except for Onagawa, where the guy in charge of that project made sure that plant would survive, and it did. It was the only one that came out of that quake and tsunami untouched. All right, Steve Elkins, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Well, hey, understanding that in 501c3, that you have to spend at least 51% of what you take in on the charitable cause itself. And we know that Hillary Clinton only paid, 6 to 9%? I think it was 9%
Yes.
of what they took in on the charitable cause. My question to you is, who's responsible for the enforcement of the code itself? Has there been any lawsuit filed on this fraudulent foundation?
There should be, but I mean, certainly the Internal Revenue Service it has the authority to revoke the 501c3 status over the fact that they have not complied with that 51% requirement. And that would make Bill and Hillary Clinton immediately personally liable for the tax on all of that money. But the Clintons are proving to be absolutely untouchable. Hillary could, kill a baby live on national television and nobody's going to do a thing about it.
Yeah, that's unfortunate for the rest of us who have to follow the rules and the law.
Yep.
And that these people are untouchable. I don't know. I don't have any respect for the whole system at all. It's just
it's breaking down.
Exception to the rulers.
It's breaking down. It's not working. The agencies of the federal government are not doing the jobs they're supposed to be doing. We've seen that as a growing phenomenon, the way the SEC turned a blind eye to Bernie Madoff, the way the Minerals Management Service turned a blind eye to the Deepwater Horizon. Nothing is working as it should. And it just seems to be about grabbing money and internecine rivalry and political warfare, which is another reason why I think we're headed eventually for a Soviet Union-style collapse.
Yeah, and Bernie Sanders also being cheated out in the primaries for the nominee. This is amazing. You're right. Everything is completely falling apart, or they're just simply saying, "Well, I'm not going to enforce that. I'm not going to enforce that." It's a system breakdown.
Yep,
Big
it
time.
is.
Hey, thanks, Michael. Appreciate it.
All right, thanks an awful lot. We're going to let you go, and we're going to close the phone lines here because we're getting close to the end of the program. Now, this is a story that I am really enjoying, and it came out of BBC. It's actually been in a lot of different places. Getting on back to the planet Mars, which is now at opposition, you'll see it very high in the sky at night, and it's very bright because of the dust storm. Going all the way back to Viking was the issue of, is there water on Mars? And even though we saw something that looked like snow on the ground at one point with the Viking cameras, it was declared to be carbon dioxide. There couldn't possibly be water. And then later on, the rovers started finding little pools of very brackish water that could survive in the near vacuum and the cold temperatures. Then the orbiters started seeing liquid water flowing down the sides of various craters. And now researchers have found evidence of an actual lake 12 miles across under the planet's south polar ice cap. So we have got, I think, a lander to that ice cap, drill into that water and look at it and see if there's life in there. Because this is the first sign of a persistent body of water on the planet. And if there's life still on Mars, you're going to find a lot of it there. So we're going to take a break now for commercials, back with some more stories after these few words. We'll be right back.
Homeowners, if your lender has gone out of business or sold your transaction to another lender or servicer, you may be the victim of a wrongful foreclosure, resulting in the loss of your home. If you've already lost your home, are in foreclosure, or even in good standing, you can challenge the mortgage transaction's illegal issue, and your property can be restored to you, and your foreclosure can be stopped or reversed, and the mortgage transaction declared unenforceable. State laws, U.S. title codes, the Uniform Commercial Codes, and U.S. Supreme Court rulings have upheld that defective mortgage documentations can reverse or stop foreclosures and enforce property title claims in favor of the homeowner. We are having successes in stopping the process of foreclosure, the enforcement of the foreclosure judgments, the sale of property, and evictions after the sale. We are not attorneys, and we don't give legal advice. We are a professional team of legal researchers, providing forensic mortgage audits and expert witnesses. We have the knowledge to produce the evidence and enforce laws regarding your legal issues. We've been in business for 12 years without a complaint. Consultations are free, and we provide a free title search to confirm if your mortgage has legal defects. Please call 855-253-3748. 855, 2, keep it today.
Without the right accessories, any guy can be off the mark. Whether you've invested thousands in your arsenal or you own a single trusted firearm, a visit to AROutfitting.com is in order. It's one of the finest online selections of tactical optics and AR parts and add-ons, like EOTech, quick target acquisition with no peripheral loss. Browse the full range of Nikon scopes and binoculars. AROutfitting.com can illuminate your world with Streamlight gun-mounted lights from keychain to large handhelds up to 1,100 lumens. Find some stability with Battenfield tactical bipods. AirOutfitting.com has CMMG gun parts, barrels, assemblies, handguards, part kits, and more, plus mag-full clips and magazines. I know I've got you excited, so take a breath. Head to AirOutfitting.com. The site's super easy to navigate and features a ton of technical info, including links to manuals. We also welcome vendor and manufacturer inquiries. Remember, if you don't see it, we can get it at AROutfitting.com.
Do you or a loved one suffer migraine headaches? Listen to what scientist Kurt Hendricks has to say.
35 million people in the United States suffer with debilitating migraines. If you or a loved one are one of them, you need to know about MigraLief. Hi, I'm Kurt Hendricks, the scientist that formulated and patented the MigraLief migraine formula. MigraLief is a non-prescription dietary supplement recommended by neurologists, pharmacists, and pediatricians to address nutritional deficiencies in both adults and children over 2 with migraines. Try MigraLief for 3 months and see the powerful difference it can make in your life, or get your money back, no questions asked. Go to MIG911.com or call 800-MIG-7354. You can change your life today.
So if you suffer from migraines, don't wait. Call 800-MIG-7354. That's 800-MIG-7354 or visit MIG911.com.
What this country is coming to, I sure would like to know. If they don't do something by and by, the rich will live and the poor will die. Doggone, I mean the panic is on. Can't get no way, can't draw no pay. Unemployment.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. Last segment of our program here on this Thursday. And I want to close this out with another story about scientific goofs and why it is important to follow the scientific method and just make sure that what you're doing is right. This story goes all the way back to 2011, 2012, when CERN was running an experiment using neutrinos generated at the CERN facility and detected with a detector inside a mountain all the way over in Italy. And they were using neutrinos, and because they're neutrinos, which can zip through the entire Earth unimpeded, they didn't have to have a tunnel or anything. They just set up the detector and they shot these muons, and they came up with a bizarre result. The neutrinos were arriving at the detector 60 nanoseconds sooner than they should have. And it looked like maybe CERN had discovered that neutrinos were traveling faster than the speed of light. Now, the scientists at CERN were being careful, and they went back and they did variations and other changes to the experiment. They kept coming up with that same number over and over. They still weren't really convinced, but somebody leaked the results outside, and it got picked up. It was in all the newspapers. Relativity is overturned. Even Scientific American carried this story. And it was a goof, because CERN ultimately determined that there was a problem in the synchronization of the clocks between the sending and receiving system. And when they worked it, apparently there was a kink in a fiber optic cable. And when they took that all into account, they accounted for that 60 nanosecond error. So for those people who've been sending me these articles here, CERN did not, in fact, prove that neutrinos travel faster than light. There was a flaw in the experimental setup. Relativity is still the foundation of modern physics. And no, nothing can go faster than the speed of light in a vacuum. You have to have that qualifier there, because light travels slower going through a medium like water or glass. That's why lenses will refract and bend light. But in a vacuum, 186,285 miles per second. It's not just a good idea, it's the law. And finally, this is a bizarre story. Apparently over at the zoo in Egypt, they've been caught painting black and white stripes on a donkey to make it look like a zebra. And apparently somebody there visiting the zoo took a picture, took a selfie, put it up on Facebook, and it went viral. And everybody quickly said, that can't possibly be a zebra. The shape of it is a donkey. And a veterinarian pointed out that on this animal, the black and white stripes, which are smudged, I might point out, go all the way to the end of the nose. And on a real donkey, the snout is completely black. Now, I don't know why this Egyptian zoo did this. They're denying it. They're insisting it really is a zebra, but it's a huge, huge embarrassment. And just a little funny here. I mean, that poor animal, to have that paint on him all the time. That's cruelty to animal, I think. So be very careful when somebody tries to sell you a zebra. It may be a painted donkey. Okay, we're coming up here on the end of our program, and please stay tuned for John Stadmiller. I'm sure he's got a lot of interesting things to share with you. Please take what you learn here and share it with everybody that you know. Talk to them in person, bring back the art of the conversation. Email, unless somebody takes action to bring back openness, fairness, and the First Amendment to corporate social media, it's a complete waste of time. And I'm not surprised that Facebook took the hit that it did. Please support Republic Broadcasting. Please support whatreallyhappened.com. We need your help to keep the fight for truth going forward. We'll be back tomorrow with the lovely Lady Claire. Aloha, America.
EOTech, quick target acquisition with no peripheral loss. Browse the full range of Nikon scopes and binoculars. AROutfitting.com can illuminate your world with streamlight gun